Hi, everyone, and welcome to Techno Crime Fighters Forum again this morning, Thursday, the 8th of March, 2018. I'm here this morning with Dr. Katherine Horton. We are trying to recover from massive sabotage this morning because, as you know, those of you who've been waiting for this broadcast, I mean, literally, we were bumped off my channel first and then bumped off her channel next. And I think this is the third call that we're trying. We're trying one more time with Google Hangouts. Karen Stewart was going to join us this morning. I think Katherine will tell us what exactly went wrong there, but she's having difficulties getting on as well. So Katherine, feel free to jump in. I think you're still muted.
Yes, sorry, I was basically coordinating with the chat, and I just yes, today was wild. We had some new forms of sabotage. I mean, it's lovely. I mean, from Edward Snowden, we know about all these capabilities that NSA and GCHQ have to actually sabotage the democracy and maul, people's freedom of speech online. But we always discover new features. So this is absolutely amazing. I mean, it just fills my heart with joy to see what amazingly clever and also, quite how to say, amusing hackers GCHQ and NSA have, because every week we discover a new feature that they've just implemented the week before. So this week, this was actually novel. I'm not sure who came up with this, but it is quite clever. It's actually really funny. When we wanted to go live, it said can't go live, and then when I went out of the Hangouts and then came back in, the go live button had been removed. So there was no way for us to go live, which I think expresses the deepest, wishes of these intelligence agencies. They just don't want us to go live, basically. So sorry, guys.
No.
Back.
Here we are. We're back, and unfortunately, as I just informed the guys from the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, the whole bunch of them who sit on our computers night and day, I informed them in a little letter that I wrote and left on my computer for them to read, because they're so interested in reading my monitor all the time. I signed it off, your nemesis. So, I think we've kind of figured out that we are their nemesis, because we're not going to stop talking. And for everybody who the first time, I should probably launch into my usual spiel. We're here as a group, a very small group this morning, of course, but we're here as a group week after week to have a public conversation about the horrors of surveillance abuse that are endemic both in the US, the UK, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, all over the world, Asia as well, and South America and the other parts of North America as well. We all know at this point in time, to all intents and purposes, we appear to be suffering under a global one world governance system already, where the intelligence agencies are acting like one big jointed cockroach with their claws spread out all over the world. Engaging in massive criminal surveillance and using things like surveillance radar, through-wall surveillance radar, directed energy weapons, sonic weapons, and various other neuro bio weapons, as well as chemical weapons, on the populaces of the world. So we are here to talk openly about it, to point to the documentation, to point to the evidence, to point to the information that is already out there that proves that these weapons are indeed being used on populations. And, to speak out against it and to demand that the intelligence agencies and the military stop what they're doing, and to also raise public awareness and spread the word so that humanity as a whole can come together and begin to do something about this, because it's outrageous and it's criminal. So, Katherine, did you want to start by just giving news of the day?
Yes, I do actually. I just want to say I really love the fact that you just send, you actually write letters to the intelligence agencies and you just leave them on your computer. That's right, guys. If you want to send a message to GCHQ, type it into a text message. If you want to send them an encrypted message, type it into a text message and don't press send. It's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? This is just the modern day we live in. But don't worry, we all have got a plan. And actually, I titled today's episode "The Opening of the Wall," because that's how I actually see it. So last week was the 50th episode, so we had 50 episodes of just informing the public. And we had some campaigns last year, and they were all campaigns to inform people. And, we had the tsunami campaign, which was then cut into half by the attacks on me. We had the memo to Trump, which was informing the US president. And everything we did last year, I realized, was always about informing people. Now, the information period is over. Now, this episode is entitled "The Opening of the Wall," because now we are going to fight back, and we're going to not do it violently, of course. So anything you hear on the show that you might think sounds like violence is not meant like that. We're fighting an administrative war, we're fighting a paper war, we're fighting an informational war, and the war about for the hearts and minds of people. But today will be the opening of the war, so we'll be firing back heavily. And we will continue doing that every single week, probably till the day we die. I know that we've got a very dangerous life, but our aim, I think mine personally, I should speak for myself, is to just die after the heads of Intel. So that's my goal in life. If we're both in a car crash, the heads of Intel, I just want to, live a second longer to see them die. Personally, that's my goal in life.
And Katherine, I should just point out there's a huge difference between, their use of violence and our use of weapons. And there are deadly directed energy weapons. So they are hitting us with directed energy weapons, and we are firing back simply with our words and our thinking. And, this is why they're so deathly afraid of humans, that they are using neuro weapons to start lobotomizing and removing people's brains, really, and stop people from thinking. That's really where we are at this moment in history. Neuro weapons have gotten so sophisticated, they can do this remotely, they can send and they can destroy your brain. So we are fighting for humanity because obviously that, we all need our brains, and we don't need to sacrifice our brains to these morons in these intelligence agencies who have these weapons. These weapons need to be openly spoken about. The horrors that they are wreaking on the populace need to be openly spoken about. And these weapons need to be rolled up and thrown in the bin, prevented from using them. So that is our intention. We intend to bring attention to the horrors of these weapons that they are using against us, to the extreme violence that is being wreaked on us through this weaponry and the control grid of weaponry. And, all we have are our words and our minds. So we're speaking while humans still have words and minds, to make sure that humans will continue to have words and minds. So, that's what we're all about. And so we should continually remind these jokers sitting in and listening in on us and watching us, desperately trying to frame us and entrap us and take down everything we say, and misattribute to us violence and extremism. Their little call words: violent, extremist, terrorist, etc., etc. To them is absolute nonsense, So.
Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead.
And I completely agree with you. Actually, the words that they're using, and this is typical for psychopaths, the description of themselves is thrown back at innocent victims. And that's a classic trait of psychopaths. So I completely agree. Actually, for those people who don't know, I completely actually agree with Ramona with what she said. I think the name of the game right now is targeted brain mutilation. I believe that the mapping of the brain has already been completed, I think in the 80s and 90s. And I think since then, they are just trying to build up a massive weapon system. I suspect it's going to be the 5G with the new form of, mobile phone antennas that have a very conical, very focused pulse-like functionality. I suspect that will be used for targeted brain mutilation. And I think the idea is to just pulse you, shoot you in the head, and actually zap the bit of the brain that might even think about going up against the crime cartel. I think, unfortunately, this program is being rolled out. I think 5G is extremely dangerous. I think 5G is part of the Internet of Things, whereby the Internet of Things is a total misnomer. It's a cover-up. I believe the Internet of Things is actually the Internet of humans, of human bodies. And I think actually it's not about making your toaster talk to your fridge. It's about making your covert body implants that we suspect a very large fraction of the population already has. It's about making those body chips be interactable by your toaster so that you can literally be attacked by your fridge or by your toaster or by your mobile phone. We think this is what this is about. And the huge infrastructure.
It's an internet of sensors, I think, Katherine, because they're sticking these sensors in everybody, right? They're nanobiosensors, they're microchip sensors, and there are also sensors being put everywhere around the world. I mean, literally, they've got programs now, the military does, to blanket the entire Earth with sensors.
Exactly.
Every contour. I mean, these guys, we're talking about massively megalomaniac, lunatic psychopaths.
Yes, and I think this is also another thing that has not been discussed in previous centuries. The very high number of mentally ill people in the military and the intelligence agencies. Psychopaths are one, but there are other mental degeneracies, and these people proliferate. And right now they seem to have networked over the globe, and they seem to have reached critical mass, pushed them and their likes into government positions and regulatory bodies. And by now these people are under, I would call it total freefall, under their own psychopathy. So this is the war. Welcome to the war against the biggest crime cartel and all the psychopaths in the world. What can possibly be more fun? So in case you're wondering what a couple of ladies can possibly do against that, well, quite a lot actually, because as Ramona said, we still have our thoughts, we still have our words, but we've got much more than that. We still have the ability to file court cases and let loose the most grinding war of them all upon them, and that is the paper war, the administrative war. So fortunately, all of us on this side have a lot of stamina. So you are now listening to the Navy SEALs who actually pulled through this program to get to this point. And all the victims who are listening right now know that if you're listening to this and you still have fight in you, it means that you are a very, very elite part of the population. Sadly, a lot of people who were not as strong as you have already killed themselves or died. But if you're still alive, you are elite. You're the true elite, actually. You're not the fake elite. Those military so-called elites turn out to be all cowards. And frankly, I would think a bunch of sodomized little boys who need daddy to actually tell them what to do. But if you're not part of the military and if you actually pulled through, you are truly elite and we need you. So we would need your help in this war. And I would like to update you about the war just this past week and today. So today I already visited the battlefield and I would like to inform you about it. I would like to inform everybody in the world about it, but especially the people who are in the German-speaking parts and especially the people who are in Switzerland. But this has got relevance to everybody on the globe. Let me just share my screen and introduce you to a lady. She is, I think, the most warm-hearted woman you can imagine. Her name is Dr. Regina Merkley, and she's a forensic psychiatrist here in Switzerland. But she's one of the good psychiatrists. You can see an interview with her. The journalist Volker Hoffmann knows her well and has done several interviews. And Dr. Merkley says that forensic psychiatry has gone mad. And they are, the first and the second interview here, they are both absolutely excellent. And I encourage you to listen to her. So you can also see on my website, there are links to Gerhard Ulrich. That's another Swiss campaigner against judicial corruption. And Regina fights against corruption in forensic psychiatry. Now, I have attended today a court hearing where Dr. Regina Merkley was actually charged. And what is just so heartbreaking, I mean, I didn't have time to read up about it and what it was actually about. And I went to the court case not knowing anything. I was part in the public gallery as a court observer. And when her lawyer read out the charge sheet against Dr. Merkley, my jaw just dropped to the floor. It was absolutely unbelievable, shocking. And what was also shocking is that the lawyer outlined some extremely odd, I would say corrupt, practices by Swiss authorities, the Swiss judiciary, and the Swiss Attorney General. And the actual court case was about the fact that Dr. Merkley has a couple of properties and she rents them, not for profit, but to actually help people who are in need, help people who have been screwed hard by forensic psychiatry. She knows that there are a lot of people, but she helps them. And when they can't find accommodation anywhere else because I don't know, they've got the criminal record or people don't trust her, she actually talks to them. She uses her own judgment of them. And when she thinks that she trusts them, she actually gives them accommodation at very reduced prices and makes sure that they can find a home. So she has been doing this extensively and she's known for that. But one of her tenants basically came up with a ludicrous story. He is a convicted, person who is, I think, a 9-year history of very, very odd things happening. And now he's suing her because apparently he claims, as far as I understand from the court case, that she took his property and locked it away. What Regina's lawyer outlined is that actually she owned the property, and this guy, I think there was some sort of altercation, but he called the police, and basically he enforced that the stuff that was in his flat, I think it might have been even a furnished flat, was taken and was declared to be his without actual consultation. So anyway, when I talked to Dr. Merkley, what was interesting is she said, well, this is not the first time. She's the victim of a long-running campaign by the judiciary. And she outlined how, her father was attacked, her husband was attacked, and now she's being attacked in court. And as a systems analyst and as somebody who knows something about statistics, it occurred to me that it's rather unusual to have so many court cases all in the same family of fairly independent people. So I think my personal take on this, based on what I've seen so far, is that she's also a victim of generational targeting. And what was absolutely breathtaking is that the court today had a hearing where only Dr. Merkley and her lawyer were present. The other side didn't even bother to turn up. The other side didn't even send a lawyer. Okay, so the other side was not present. And I find that extraordinary that one can have a court hearing where the actual claimant doesn't even bother to turn up and doesn't even send a lawyer. It's basically what this entire show, to me, it seemed like a show, seemed to suggest is that the other side had already a schmoozy arrangement with the judiciary and they didn't even have to turn up. That's the kind of image that was projected. So I find this very concerning. Then the other thing I find extremely concerning is that there was a witness whom I heard, but the witness went in to speak to the judges by himself without the presence of the defendant. And apparently this long chat was to check if the witness was actually trustworthy. But I find this also highly questionable. I mean, I basically find it, a symptom of corruption, because what you can have is you can have some shady dealing, cow trading between the 3 judges present and this witness that is not actually observed by the defendant. I don't know what planet Switzerland is living on, but it seems to me something certainly removed from the rest of the world, because I've never seen something like this before. Now, I find this already very concerning because this was, the court hearing was taking place in northern Switzerland. The last hearing took place in West Switzerland, the one of Siegfried Thomas. And there I remind people the irregularity was that Siegfried Thomas appeared in front of the judge and found out that I was not allowed to go in. I was told I'm not allowed to witness the court hearing because I might be called as an expert witness. Okay. But the entire public gallery was banned from attending a court case, the one of Siegfried Thomas. There were people who came as court observers and they were barred from entry. And afterwards, I found out from Siegfried Thomas and his lawyer that Not just that, they went, so first of all, the claimant went in and spoke to the judge, and Siegfried Thomas and his judge were not allowed in. Then they went in on their own and they spoke to the judge. So basically, as far as I can tell, the entire transparency of the court system has been removed by the court system in Biel, and they are now talking to the claimant and the defendant individually, in camera, as in, in private. And I think this is not a court case. This is some shady wheeling and dealing. I mean, this is what? Wall Street, share trading, insider trading. Well, what is this, right? I mean, this is just absolutely ludicrous. So already after the court case of Siegfried Thomas in Biel, I thought, my goodness, the sorry state of the Swiss judiciary. But after what I've seen and heard today, I think there's some serious corruption going on. And certainly the potential for corruption is absolutely staggering. And when I heard today that this is now one of many court cases that her family had to suffer, I'm seriously of the opinion that Dr. Regina Merkley, specifically because she doesn't go along with the crime cartel, is now being attacked by them. So I will be following this case very closely. I think it is one of these pillars, the court case and also Dr. Merkley, that we have to use to salvage our systems, because she speaks out against the corruption in forensic psychiatry. And if you know how targeting is tied to corrupt so-called expert testimonies from forensic psychiatrists, you also know how incredibly valuable experts like Dr. Merkley are, who actually are willing to say the truth and who use their brain and assess a person. Also, assess a person at their own risk with their own mind. So for me, she's a woman who actually, does as she preaches and really acts consistently. So I just would like to report this court case today. Unfortunately, I couldn't listen to the entire thing because I had to come back for Techno Forum. But it was happening this afternoon, and I'll be keeping people updated because I think the world needs to know what's going on in Switzerland. I also remind people of the work of Sean Ross. That's his surname is written Hross. I encourage everybody to find the YouTube video called Octagon Empire of Darkness, where the historian Sean Ross explains how about the symbolisms of the crime cartel and also Switzerland specifically as the homeland of the crime cartel and why that is. It's basically the home of the Knights Templar, and he makes the case that the Knights Templar were given Switzerland after they were kicked out of Jerusalem. And this seems to tally with absolutely everything I know. So I really, really encourage everybody to learn from Sean. I also would like to draw people's attention to the fact that he became targeted. I think he was mobbed and gang stalked here in Switzerland, and in the end had to flee the country. So also the case of Sean Ross is still ongoing. Now, so these are the general updates. I've seen that Ramona has dropped out. Oh, she's now coming back. Karen should join us, but she had difficulty in actually joining the call. So today we were sabotaged absolutely insanely, and you can see how our starting time is shifting to later and later. We really apologize about that, but it's all due to the actual attacks on us. Now, one quick update while I wait for Ramona to come back. We've got really some fireworks prepared for you today. Okay. So just before we start the fireworks, I just would like to point people to something new I have tried. And I really encourage you to actually try it if you have the money and if you've got the DIY skills. It's very, very simple. You can see that I have now upgraded my bunker to something, well, more, first of all, elegant, perhaps, but then also something more, breathable. Because in my previous bunker, just for the alufoil, I could feel that I'm really breathing in aluminium, which is extremely damaging, by the way. Okay, so one of the things I tried on the recommendation of Ramona is to buy so-called Reflectix. That's what it's called in the US with an X at the end, and in Germany it's called Biard, I think. So BIARD on Amazon. Basically, I bought a 40-meter roll, if I may just show this to you. It's here next to me, a 40-meter roll of this, and it's 48 inches in width. That's 1.20 meters. And what I did is I completely surrounded my work area, and then I cut it off, and I put a second layer above. And basically here, behind this. This is a third layer, third protective layer. But I basically took the two rolls and I placed them slightly above each other so that they overlap, and I taped it with transparent tape. So it looks a bit better. And then I could basically move it up all the way to the ceiling. So this is all the way, I'm not sure if you can see up there. Okay, so to a height of 2.30 meters. Now, one of the things I would like to report is that this Reflectix consists of, I'm not sure if you can see, it's basically, where's the lens here? It's basically 2 layers of alu, okay? So you've got double protection with bubble wrap in between. What's really good is you've got 2 layers of alu, so it blocks the shots. The second thing is the bubble wrap allows you to hear the shots. It allows you to hear the pulsed energy projectiles. So it's very good for collecting evidence, because I put this up around me, and as soon as I sat down, I could start them trying to hit me, and I could hear loud and audible shots left, right, and from the front. Okay, so these were people, my dear neighbors here in Unterengstringen, shooting at me from 3 sides. But the good thing is you can use an audio recorder and actually record it, or a webcam or something. The second thing I would like to report about this, it's not just great for collecting evidence. When I put this up around me, totally around me, you have to make sure it overlaps and there are no gaps, because the smallest gap and they will shoot through and use back reflections to hit you in the back or in the head again. But I would like to report that as soon as I put this up on Saturday, on Sunday, I had my first ever day in the last 2 years where I had a clear head. Okay, it felt like heaven, because I was bombing along like in the olden days on Sunday doing my work for the first time in 2 years. And suddenly I discovered that actually all along my brain must have been locked on with several, I would guess several overcrossing beams at slightly different frequencies. I used my measuring device here to actually try to measure what's actually going on. So you can see the radiation here is kind of okay. They can still shoot in from the top, but it's much better than it was. But I ask you to please try it. A roll of 40 meters does cost 160 euros, but you can get 20 meters, for half the price, and you can get 10 meters and so on. So please try it out. And if you've got the same experience as I have, it might be a way to shield, and a fairly cheap way to shield. Also, it has some plastic covering on this, so you're not breathing aluminium. And I'm not advertising a specific brand. I'm just advertising the type of insulation. You can find this under home insulation, and you can find it on Amazon as well. And I'll be posting the links, and so people can find it. But I encourage you to try. Now, the one thing I also discovered, as soon as I put this on, and when they couldn't hit me, they got the drones out. So I was trying to record throughout the night the whirring sound. It sounds literally like an engine. It sounds like, where I live, it's under flight path, so I know what it sounds like when a plane goes past. But basically, it sounded like non-stop for hours, having a plane above your head, So to me, that sounds like a drone, So they got the drones out, and they were hitting me through the ceiling. And that was extraordinary, because I basically sleep in here under my desk with metal foil around me, and basically they were just machine gunning nonstop. So this morning on International Women's Day, I woke up basically to the machine gunning from the drones above, or from planes or satellites, or I don't know what, but it was definitely coming from above. I also have metal under the carpet that I sit on, so it wasn't from below, it was definitely from above. And the shots are absolutely staggering, So this was it. I can see that Ramona is having difficulty coming on. So I know exactly, by the way, can I just have a quick cross-check? Can you guys in the chat hear me? Could somebody say, can you guys hear me? Please give me feedback. Can you guys hear me in the chat? Because I expect that we are being sabotaged into bits. Okay, no complaints so far. Okay, right. So, okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm really paranoid because they have been doing everything. So I really want Ramona back. I can tell you what these people are afraid of, because as most of the victims probably know by now, the last week there was an article by Wired magazine, and because Ramona is our expert for everything to do with media and journalism, both her and I got massively annoyed. Not just annoyed, I decided to make the Wired magazine article part of my court case, and basically the article was shocking in the extreme. And Ramona and I wanted to use today's Techno Forum to absolutely rip it to shreds. But not just that, we also would like to teach you what psychological warfare techniques have been employed in this article by the journalist Laura Yan. And I really want to dissect it because it's very subtle methods of information and psychological warfare that are being used. And Ramona basically read a couple of books about the CIA tricks, and she can talk a lot about it. And also she's extremely good in picking up language and the subtle use of language. And we have talked about this before coming on the show. And now I'm not sure if you can see, but Ramona has basically, I can see two icons here for Ramona, but I can't see her, nor can I actually hear her. And I rather suspect that she's fighting with the sabotage. But basically, I want you to know that Ramona is being sabotaged because basically these little deers are crapping themselves that she will come on and utterly, let rip. And as soon as she comes on, that's exactly what we're going to do. Meanwhile, I will say a couple more things about the stuff that I have been doing. Also, I remind people that there's huge censorship on YouTube, which is owned by, I think, Google, which in turn was set up by the CIA. There's a wonderful article about how Google was set up by the CIA and was basically a brainchild from day one. And I rather suspect that some NSA, R&D and DARPA R&D went into the whole thing. I never really bought the story about, yes, a bunch of kids in a garage set this up and boom, here we have a global corporation. No bullcrap. I think what happened is that these kids were used as a front. Perhaps they are intel. I rather suspect they are. That's what I would do if I was the cartel. But in any case, I rather suspect that Google search algorithms are probably 20 years of research from, NSA and DARPA or some such organization. So as you know, YouTube is owned by Google, which is a brainchild of the CIA and NSA. And you won't be surprised to hear that there's massive censorship now that we're actually moving to shut down the crime cartel that owns the CIA. So what has happened is that Richie Allen's YouTube channel has been deleted. I don't even know why. And I don't think that Richie Allen had any sort of court case against him. So it was a unilateral decision. I've just seen we have made 100 viewers live. I've got a message from Ramona. She says she's continuously being bumped off. She's going to try to come back. Yes, as I expected, she's being sabotaged. But meanwhile, we just have the 100th viewer coming live and watching our show. So this is going well. What I wanted to say is Richie Allen's YouTube channel has been closed down. All the videos have been deleted. And this includes 2 interviews that I had on the Richie Allen show. Now, I don't even know why, Richie Allen's show was shut down. There was no court case. As far as I'm aware, Richie Allen has never received any complaints. So this was a unilateral decision by YouTube. And as always, they are quoting so-called community rules. Now, this I got rather annoyed about because they deleted 2 of my interviews, and because I'm informing the world about a directed energy weapon system that's endangering the US and the European and the worldwide population, but also endangering European and US national security. I do consider it to be a public interest broadcast that went out. It's certainly in the public interest. And I think it is not just an infringement on my freedom of speech, and it's not just extreme discrimination, it is also violating the interests of national security in Europe and the US, what YouTube has done. Now, as my great uncle used to say, there's no reason to react emotionally, just sue them. So thus I have now sent notice to YouTube, and I would like to show you the letter that I have posted, because I would like to encourage people to imitate me. Basically, where's the letter? So I've composed a letter to YouTube. Hang on. They've made it. Don't tell me. So I have to say, they deleted a document from my computer last week. which was the court detailed for Siegfried Thomas and some more information. Okay, I've got this. Lucky you, intel agencies. So I found the actual letter, and I would like to show this to you because I encourage people to do the same. But I want you to know what I have sent to YouTube, because I think this is in the public interest, and you need to know what's going on. So basically, this is my letter to the CEO of YouTube, called Susan Wojcicki, or however you pronounce her name. And basically, the letter reads as follows. So if you ever want to write an official letter, stick on your name and address, their name and address, and then let rip. So I said, this is a notice of commercial fraud and cover-up of crimes against humanity. Dear Ms. Wojcicki, always send it straight to the CEO. This is to formally notify you of commercial fraud and cover-ups of crimes against humanity being committed by your company, and to request that you rectify these issues below within 14 days. Always set a deadline. So the commercial fraud. For the past 6 months, you have deprived me of advertising income by engaging in what appears to be a carefully timed procedure of demonetizing my videos when they are gathering views, and then remonetizing them once the view numbers slow down or stabilize. As the advertising revenue is accrued in the phase where a lot of people are viewing my videos, I consider this to be targeted at reducing the income I'm making in a covert fashion. I consider this to be commercial fraud. Furthermore, as an innocent victim of the Western intelligence agencies, I have suffered targeted operations that aimed at annihilating my income sources. I consider your actions to be so bizarre and so consistent that it appears to me very likely that your demonetization is part of that type of discrimination. I thus ask you to stop engaging in the demonetization practice that I've observed you conduct on my channel. Second, cover-up of crimes against humanity. As a victim of the Western intelligence agencies, I and my family have suffered grave violations and physical abuse that are crimes against humanity. There are hundreds of thousands of victims who are in a similar situation. For their benefit and in the public interest, I have given 2 interviews to the Richie Allen show. These interviews have now been deleted along with Richie Allen's entire channel. The deletion of this channel is said to be the result of some unspecified violation of community rules of another interview that he has made. I have no idea what sort of community rules could have been violated, given that Richie Allen has not been taken to court over a complaint, nor has he received a complaint himself, as far as I'm aware. What is a fact, however, is that YouTube's so-called community rules do not trump the laws of the European countries in which it is operational, nor does it trump national security interests of those nations. In my case, my interviews informed Western citizens in Europe and the US, where the Richie Allen show is watched on YouTube, about grave human rights violations and the deployment of a weapons system against the civilian population that is a direct threat to national security in every Western country. As such, my interviews were public interest broadcasts, and it is of paramount importance that YouTube reinstate them immediately, as the Western population has a right to know about crimes against humanity that affect them. It is also in the interest of national security in each Western country that those videos are immediately reinstated. Should these issues mentioned above not be corrected by you, they will be part of forthcoming court proceedings. Yours sincerely, Dr. Katherine Horton, and I gave my channel ID. So basically, if you think, if you agree with the sentiment and the general, this entire move, basically, I ask you to take this as an example and also, imitate me. I am posting this as registered mail. I've already posted it on the YouTube feedback form, but I will also post it in paper. Either way, I will make sure that these people get it. But always, if you send official posts, do pay the extra and make it registered post, okay? It is more expensive, but it is worth it, because with that, you create an official document, okay? This is official post, and it has to arrive. And this is particularly important because I would like to report that the last week, my post has been sabotaged. So I uploaded already a video how an Amazon package containing this book, Programmed to Kill by David McGowan, that I recommend everybody to read, and a stack of empty logbooks that I also encourage everybody to have to write up. Where's my logbook? Somewhere around here. To write up, well, basically it looks like this, you should all have, an A4 booklet or whatever size suits you, and for every day make an entry of all the abuses that you have suffered, even the ones you can't prove because you don't have the expertise and the technology. It doesn't matter. Please make a record every day. I know it's a pain in the neck to do it, but it is also evidence that you do that. So I had a delivery of empty logbooks because I'm going through them, yeah, like you wouldn't believe, but also this book here. And I found my Amazon package outside the door, ripped open. It was snowing on the day, it was raining, and my package was ripped open demonstratively. And it was placed like that to my entry. So next to my entry door. So that was a violation of postal secrecy. Now, I don't know who ripped my package open. It could be the downstairs neighbors who basically attacked me. And this is, you know, on the video, terror by the neighbors on my channel, Stop 007. You can hear them scream at me and physically threaten me. So it could be those two. But it could also have been a gang stalker, or it could be the postman, although I never had a problem with the postman. So I don't know what happened, but nevertheless, this big package was, instead of left at the post office, it was left on the front door. So it could have been the postman. I don't know. But this was not normal. This was a violation, a demonstrative violation of postal secrecy. I also filmed the seal, and you could see that it wasn't just ripped open by accident. Someone actually tried to open it at another point before ripping it open. So there's evidence for that. Also, I would like to register that I have ordered off Amazon, and this is another postal trick. I ordered an entire stack of books, all to do with the CIA and the CIA techniques. Most of them were recommended by me to me by Ramona. Now, I made this order, and one of the books that actually arrived, which I also recommend everybody to get, is this one. Actually, the main book is here. It's called Healing Codes for the Biological Apocalypse. This was written by Dr. Leonard Horowitz and Dr. Joseph Puleo. Now, these two have written quite an amazing book, but in there they talk about HARP, they talk about MK Ultra, and they make references to documents and so on and so on. Very good book, but I had to get it because this is a recommendation by our dear colleague, Dr. Millicent Black, who is a top researcher. And apparently somewhere in this book is a reference, we believe, as it was quoted somewhere else, I think, about the secret directive signed by Ronald Reagan that allowed the chipping at birth of all Americans under the so-called Emigration Control Act. And I have to emphasize, like every week, it's emigration, not immigration. It's not about the Mexicans coming in. It's about the Americans trying to flee the US. Okay, so this is another book you should get. But this book arrived because it was sent by another vendor in a separate package. But all the books straight from Amazon about the CIA tricks and so on did not arrive. Now, when I questioned Amazon why they were actually returned to the sender, and I was notified by Amazon. And when I said why, they said that in Switzerland, the label had been damaged, therefore it had to be returned. So it sounds to me like someone in the postal office has ripped the label off, but ripped the label off so cunningly that they didn't know my address, but they knew very well where to send it back. So, that's one thing. The other thing is the third strike was that Siegfried Thomas sent me a letter this week. And this letter was not actually delivered to me. It was a letter to sign for, but I wasn't here when it arrived. But it wasn't sent to the post office where it should have gone. It was sent to another one. So when I went to pick up the parcel, they didn't have it. They had to have it sent to the postal office. And by the time I went to pick it up, it was sent back to Siegfried Thomas. Now, these are the small nuisances that one has to put up with. So it is my fault for not having been here when the package arrived, but I didn't know, and it was not my fault that it was sent to a different post office. So very curious postal-related issues seem to be going on. So this is why I'm saying, please, yes, the Universal, whatever it's called, the Universal Postal Union is headquartered here in Switzerland, actually, and I think it is an integral part of the crime cartel, I would say, based on what I've seen. And this is why you should always send it by registered post. And I think these days you can check the where the package is online. But either way, your receipt and the fact that you send it as registered post creates an official document when you send this sort of stuff. So please, do that. Pay the postage and just send it. So what other news? I'm rather shocked that Ramona can't come. Let me just send her a message. I don't know where she is. If she can actually come back. I think both Ramona and Karen are desperately trying to come on the show. Dr. Millicent Black unfortunately cannot be here because she is recovering from surgery. And I encourage everybody to send a letter for Dr. Millicent Black. My website for her, I would like to warn you, there are still some changes to be made. There are still some corrections to be made. I think I made a mistake that I presented stuff that Randall Webster said to her I presented it as if Randall Webster said stuff to her to her face, but it was actually through voice to skull. So I'm still, with these caveats and a couple of other caveats. If you go to stop007.org under support our fighters, you will find Dr. Millicent Black's, and also I think on the front page there should be now a link to the contact list, all the people that we should write to help Millicent actually have the torture stopped. And it's of paramount importance that as many people as possible send the letters, send them by registered post, and create official documents that these officials named there have been notified of the grave offenses. So actually, let me just remind you where that is, because if you see it, you can actually, you know where to find it much better. It's extremely important that we do this. And I was just so busy, I haven't done it myself. But okay, let me share my screen and show you where to go. Please go there now. Please, please. This is actually important for fighting crimes against humanity. Please go to stop007.org. And whatever your position, whatever your credentials, whoever you are, wherever you are in the world, please go to the second link, Urgent Campaign for Dr. Millicent Black. And there you will get to the website. I'll show you in a second. But if you use the second link, contact these people, you will get a list with photographs, guys, of the people who have let her down. This is Chief Potts here, who gets daily, I emphasize daily, journals from Dr. Millicent Black about the mutilation and abuse that she suffers. And for more than a year, he has refused to help her. Troy Potts is the captain of investigations at Columbia Police in Tennessee. He also has refused to start an investigation and help Millicent. And down here, you can get actual, comments about what these people should be reminded of. This is just a prompt. You're free to write to them whatever you like. Tony Massey, the city manager in Columbia, also knows what's going on. He needs to get into gear. Now, Krista Martin, she has, I think, been supporting Dr. Black, but she needs a reminder that she's still being tortured. Bill Haslam, the governor, needs to be told that actually there's a genocide happening in Tennessee, and it's his bloody duty to actually get on the case. And Diane Black, governor-elect, she also has to be told and reminded. And Brian Kelsey, who's actually the chairman of the judiciary of the state of Tennessee, really needs to snap into action ASAP. So please, oh, sorry, I've actually stopped sharing my screen. Let me go back, because I would like to show you some more shocking things and I want to tell you why it's absolutely important that everybody, wherever you are in the world, you please go to this, forgive me. So on Stop 007, if you click on the link for Millicent, you will get through to this page. And I have to say, there are still some corrections to be made about the text to get the facts exactly right. Okay, so this is whatever mistake is on that site is not reflecting badly on Millicent, it's reflecting badly on me because I screwed up some details. But these are details, okay? This is stuff like, oh, Randy Webster didn't say it to her face, it was through voice to skull. Which could mean that somebody else is doing more voice morphing, software to actually imitate Randall Webster. That's true. But Randall Webster is still shown by face here because he has stalked Millicent. Millicent received a temporary order of protection. And by next week, and certainly by later on today, I will put on the full actual order for protection that Millicent already received against Randall Webster. And I want you all to know that the documentation is there and will be updated, but it was because of all the other things, all the other cases I was supporting, that I haven't actually had time to correct the mistakes, and I haven't put up the documents, but they're coming out. But I would like to also draw your attention specifically to to this professional measurement of Millicent and the number of implants found in her body. Also note that how many implants she has in the genital region around her knees and around her right leg. And it's basically her right leg that needed to have major surgery because the team that's run by Randall Webster has totally destroyed her leg. And the actual radiation damage and the chips can be seen on an X-ray I have uploaded. So ladies and gentlemen, these areas that are highlighted by a doctor in red are highly unusual on the X-ray, and they are exactly identical with the area that where the specialist scan found body chips. Okay. Now, this is an X-ray taken in 2014, and I would like to emphasize how the knee replacement implants, that is the big stuff, it's metal, that's what it's lighting up on an X-ray. I want to emphasize how knee replacements are always placed such that they are exactly fitting onto the bone, okay? Because they have to, you know, the bone has to be able to put weight on it. But 2 years later, the pulsed energy projectile directed energy weapon shots by Randall Webster and his team to Millicent's knee have shaved off the bone and have created a huge gap. Okay, this is not normal. And more than that, the doctors who have examined Millicent and done the surgery were shocked to find that her bones had gone soft. One doctor said, "Your bones were mushy." This is not normal. This is the result of continuous directed energy weapon attacks to the body of Dr. Millicent Black in her own home. And Chief Potts and Troy Potts, I think, are personally responsible that she had this amount of radiation damage, because I think already by that time they had been informed. Certainly, whoever the police officer was in 2014 that knew about this, and the entire state of Tennessee, they knew about Millicent's case, and they have not stopped Randall Webster. They have not even called him in for questioning. They have not done an investigation. So Dr. Millicent Black already spoke to the FBI. She spoke to so many places, and everybody let her down, you know. And then the other thing that can be seen on this X-ray, which also shows you, and now I'm talking to all the other victims. So I think the slightly milky silhouette is actually the body tissue, and you can see huge swelling of the leg. Just look at the size of the swelling compared to the actual leg. And that is a result of the radiation damage. So by using directed energy weapons, basically you can create huge amounts of unnatural swelling. And this is another thing that the doctors said to Millicent. They were amazed how much water was in her cells. This is not normal. This is basically you know, a result of directed energy weapon shots. This is not normal at all. So we've got all this evidence, and Millicent is gravely suffering because in the recovery center where she's now, she continues to be attacked. She actually continues to have her back burned as she's sitting, trying to recover. She gets continuous voice to skull from Randall Webster, who's commenting on everything. He even said, apparently, that through voice to skull, that I'm being mind controlled, and this is why I'm not putting up the order for protection. This is a total lie by this psychopath who's using absolutely every event in Millicent's life and my life to just, you know, use it for abuse. It's basically because I'm supporting so many cases and I have so much to do. Basically, you know, I have fires to fight everywhere. So no, dear Randall Webster, it is not because I'm mind controlled. It's because the fight is just so vast against the criminal people like you. I've just seen Ramona has come back. Ramona, are you there? Oh dear. So she just sent me a message saying, I hope we can hear her soon. She said she is continuously being bumped off and she's trying Hangouts again, but she has severe difficulties. So ladies and gentlemen, this is now what Edward Snowden blew the whistle on. You know, when GCHQ and NSA you know, hack themselves into Skype and Hangouts and Google and have cute little programs called Squeaky Dolphin and all this, you know, Rabid Squirrel or whatever the fuck they call their programs. This is what it looks like on the ground, okay? What it looks like is that we've got a massive, massive crime cartel that has just frozen Ramona again, as she's just reported. So GCHQ and NSA operate like a crime cartel, okay? like a crime cartel. And I think it was a few days ago when I tweeted a video recording by Michael Hayden, who, as far as I have seen, is one of the great criminals here in this saga. So Michael Hayden, there's actually a video recording of him saying that what NSA is not just watching terrorists, as you know, we're watching interesting people. Okay, so he made a public admission that they are not monitoring criminals and terrorists. They are monitoring whoever they find interesting. And as already has been made public, the NSA is also prolifically engaging in something called love int. This is surveillance of love interests, whereby agents use the infrastructure of NSA to spy on their love interests. It's basically anybody who they want to shag, anybody who they fancy, anybody who they saw walking down the street. It's basically anybody. These sad fucks monitor whoever they freaking want. Okay? So I'm sorry I'm using swearing, but it goes straight into your little brains. So I want you to know how absolutely severely grave it is what Michael Hayden actually said. This guy admitted to vast crimes, and thankfully we've got him live on camera, because it's not just unconstitutional, it's a crime. And we've got Michael Hayden's statement, who was stupid enough to make it public. And second of all, we have all these victims who are reporting that they are being hacked, and they are being hacked in such a systematic and intrusive way that only a nation state's intelligence agency can hack them. But it's not just the computer hacking, we're also being body hacked. And believe it or not, we seem to have sensors and chips put into our bodies, including our genitals. And these are also being interacted with through a massive signals infrastructure. And basically, a signals infrastructure of this scale can only be set up by intelligence agencies and by their contractors. Okay, so when we actually have these public statements about love int. So they are in the leaks, okay? But you also have people like Kirk Wiebe on an interview with, I think it was with Sarah Westall, where he also confirms again that NSA employees have been found to be engaging in love int. You also have to know that love int is not just reading your emails and checking the email of your spouse or your girlfriend and making sure she isn't just chatting and flirting with somebody else. No. Love int means you're also controlling the vaginal chips or whichever woman or man you fancy. Okay? And you can rape them by remote control. And I want everybody to be aware of this, because today is International Women's Day. And today I did wake up not just with a total barrage of pulsed energy projectiles being fired into my shielded bunker from drones. 2 hours later, I was also raped by the chips that I have in my vagina. Okay? And I'm speaking now, I'm 100% open about this, because I know I'm speaking for hundreds of thousands of women who get vaginally raped, rectally raped, as I am too, because I was chipped. And I can tell you pretty much exactly where I was chipped. I was chipped at Oxford University. Okay? I've now found that I can trace it back to the UK, and I'm 100% sure that I was chipped while I was at Oxford. So this means MI5 came into my student room and chipped me, all right, in the genitals and in my rectal tract. Now, why would an intelligence agency possibly need to know about my rectal tract and my, vagina? But nevertheless, they have put my genitals under surveillance, and they not just under surveillance, they also engage in love int. Okay, so some extremely sad fucks in British intelligence have been controlling my genitals. Okay, so this is, the Snowden leaks are just the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so some of those massive documents is also this bit. But every single time you hear love int, you have to know, this is what it's about. It's about controlling your daughter's vagina, okay? Or it's controlling your penis, okay? Because men are raped exactly as frequently as women. Hi, Ramona. I'm glad you're back. I'm
Hi.
now finished
Yes.
with informing the world about Love Int. Are you ready to rip into the Wired article now that you're back?
Absolutely. Well, I'm first of all so glad to see you're still on and going strong,
We
because
have
as you can tell,
120 people
I
waiting
was
for you.
bumped off hugely. Sorry?
We have 122 people live in the chat, watching us live, waiting for your comeback. This is the most people we ever had, Ramona.
This is pretty amazing because, I'll tell you, I have to actually speak openly about this. I just published an absolutely bombshell article today on my website, and perhaps this is payback, from um, the minor crowd over at the control room over there, master control room, who just fiddle around with our browsers as they like. So
Well,
this article.
can I just bring up the article in the background while you're...
Oh, please do. Yes, absolutely.
I have to switch away from your screen, share my screen, and actually bring up
Yes, do that. Yeah. Mhm.
todayconcern.net, and there you will find the new bombshell article here. Is this the one
This
counting?
is it. This is it. And this is an interview with Omni, and many people know Omni. Omni is a musician. He's a filmmaker. He's a writer. He's a graphic designer, a web designer. He's an activist. Okay, he's an activist who has been working very, very hard on various websites, putting massive amounts of information out there about these targeting and surveillance programs, about the ghastly weapons that are being used, and Omni is something of an insider because he has been reporting from the beginning. He's been reporting V2K and synthetic telepathy, which I know many of those who are targeted are also reporting. But he's been reporting being kind of drawn into this sort of secret enclave of a cybernetic network involving the very top, people from the intel agencies, people from further aspects of that big Bilderberger pyramid. So talking to Omni is always extremely elucidating and enlightening. You'll notice I'm striving very hard to keep from using the word illuminating. We all know why. Because he offers such a deep insight into what these guys are really doing and a lot of disclosure. So there is massive disclosure about what they're doing. Well, lately, Omni's been talking to me about experiencing extreme neural abuse, and we decided to do an interview where he could actually present it. So he's been presenting different aspects of this neural abuse, including what Katherine's just highlighted, BCI cognitions, thoughts and images. So with the BCI system, which is a brain-computer interface system, which involves a brain chip, by the way. So all of those people who imagine that brain chips are not involved, that people are not being implanted, I suggest you wake up from that little dream you have, because people are being implanted and have been implanted for quite some decades now. And people are being neurally attacked with these implants. And forced speech is also something that Omni is reporting, whereby the neural inputs to one's vocal cords from one's own brain are being replaced through neural heterodyning with inputs from an external source via artificial intelligence, via a supercomputer, via somebody else's cloned brains. And that's being, piped into his brain. And he's reporting it. As you know, Chris Burton has also reported that, and I've done several interviews with Chris about it. Forced speech. One of the questions I asked Omni was, can you do anything about it? Can you stop this, can you stop these impulses? And he said, no, you just absolutely cannot resist. One of the main thrusts of Omni's interview was that he's being framed. He's being neurally framed. In other words, stuff is being pumped and piped into his head, right, by one group of thugs, right? Let's call them the CIA. And what they're doing is they're piping in synthetic images and putting words into his mouth, literally through forced speech, forcing him to verbalize and vocalize them. And then all the surveillance and monitoring that's being done by another group of thugs, say the FBI or the DOJ, I would imagine the FBI because they're connected with the DOJ, right? And we know that the DOJ is running these pre-crime neuromonitoring programs, predictive policing programs. There is information on that on the internet. And I have reported some of it in some of my articles. And, I'll continue to do that. But you guys can just go and type neurocrime type predictive policing into YouTube, and you'll find some videos. You'll find some neuroscientists talking about that who are working with the DOJ. So there's this other group of thugs, as I said, let's say the FBI, monitoring and surveilling and picking up the impulses, monitoring the forced speech, monitoring the images, monitoring the brain, okay, via remote neural monitoring, and thereby engaging in massive framing. And so he's also had V2K tell him that he's being framed, and he's being framed for his activism because he is actually reporting to the world what is going on and what he's hearing and what he knows about. And, this is a huge attempt to block him and to stop the activism. So I highly recommend that everybody read that article. And so I suspect that it's this article that has sort of set off alarm bells among the, Intel hooligans who are trying to get away with this. And I should say also that both Omni and I were threatened during the creation of this interview. Through V2K, through Omni's V2K, he received literally threats, I think, saying that they were going to target me more severely if I published the article, and they were going to target him more severely. They were going to totally clamp him down. So I think what Omni's done is a brilliant thing over here, because he's totally reported what has been going on. He's reported everything from the dark, deep bowels of these black opsters. So they think they can get away with it by maintaining silence, maintaining secrecy, and using V2K and synthetic telepathy to project their threats into the world. You see, who's going to believe that, we are in your head? So their intention, as we know, played out also in that Wired article, Katherine, which I know we're going to rip into in a minute. Their intention, most definitely, is to call every single reporting victim and every single whistleblower, because I see every reporting victim of targeting and surveillance abuse as a whistleblower. As a journalist, I think it's my job to simply report, record, document, and project into the world. And so it seems to me everybody's whistleblowing about what these programs are all about. These are black ops programs. They are deadly programs. They are dirty programs because they are using invasive, highly invasive brain technology to take over people's brains.
That's right. Absolutely. And Ramona, I've got so many things to back up. But first of all, I would like to highlight one thing that I'm very pleased about, because your audio and video are excellent. I can hear you wonderfully.
Oh, brilliant. How did that happen? I wonder. I rebooted. Maybe that helped.
Right. The NSA and GCHQ.
I did tweet to them, I did congratulate them on their successful efforts in incriminating themselves as we strove to inform the world of their war crimes.
Absolutely. I love it when they generate evidence, as we go along. Absolutely. The one thing I wanted to say, we are now at 127 people listening. This is, again, another record, 128. It just keeps going up and up and up, listening live. Now, I've got another thing to say to back up this entire BCI. So I also would like to say that I have experienced remote neurohacking, remote biorobotization. They are opening and closing my fist. Some days I wake up by them, opening and closing my fist, but very dangerously. Chris Burton, I encourage everybody to go to the interview Ramona did with Chris Burton. He also reported something that is called, so he was taken over. They talked to him through his ear chip, through voice to skull. And they said, okay, Chris, let's try the accelerator pedal. And they moved his foot like that to the accelerator, And I have to say, they have done that with me. They have done that with me in the home. But I've noticed that they did that with me several times to actually make me accelerate. And this is serious, people. I'm not just making this up. To accelerate through traffic cameras. So I'm basically taken over. I can feel the current on my scalp. And I think I'm pretty sure I've got chips in my brain as well. But they suddenly induce you, you literally, and you cannot help yourself because your thoughts are being taken over. And the entire current is external, so you can't help yourself. And they have literally accelerated, and I couldn't help. I couldn't help accelerating through a traffic camera. And I've done that several times.
Very important to mention that, Katherine. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think what Chris has reported is indeed that his foot was taken over by a wave, whereby his entire leg was kind of pumped on that pedal 100 times, and he had no volition whatsoever. He had no control whatsoever. That is biorobotizing. That is extremely hazardous. So, in other words, we have a Black agency engaging in hazardous use of neurotechnology, on people. And this is exactly, so literally Chris has called himself a living Manchurian. And frankly, we can all say that because we know what the whole Manchurian program is about. It's about biorobotizing. It's about creating assassins, sleeper assassins, creating, mass shooters, active shooters, creating people whose bodies can be taken over, whose volition and brain can be taken over to wreak havoc in the populace, So the creation of such a weapon, really, a weaponized human, it becomes very useful to these Black agencies who are running already, as we know, these incredible false flags on all of us, with these many, many mass shooting events, which are really drills turned bad suddenly, and then suddenly you have mass shooter in everyone's midst. So clearly, this is what is going on. And we are here to say that this is not what humanity wants. This is not, this kind of taking over of any human is extremely wrong. It's criminal. It's criminal, quite apart from it being sinful. It takes over somebody's will, somebody's life. So, you can go into the realms of religion as well with this one. But in terms of just human behavior and human community and human society, this is criminal behavior. So these agencies that are engaging in this kind of research and hiding it under classified labels and national security labels and keeping it dark and keeping it secret, these are crimes that they are committing. They are committing crimes in our midst.
And actually, in terms of the scale of the crimes, these are crimes against humanity. These are worse than the Nazi experiments. They are extremely torturous. This is premeditated torture. The premeditated destruction of a human's body, of their will, of their soul. Because now I'm moving, I can tell that the BCI, the AI, or whatever I'm connected to, is taking me over more and more. This morning I woke up with the soles of my feet burning, so I've got chip sensors absolutely everywhere. But yes, they are moving my pedal as we're speaking. The chip that Swiss intelligence implanted in my navel in June has been turned on and is agonizingly painful. So that is basically a chip. When they turn it, extremely painful. I collapse in pain, and all of these chips can be turned up so high that you throw up from the pain. And right now I'm being tortured. And the other thing I want all the victims to know is that you have been led to believe that you can never find out who's doing it. No. Actually, the more people do, the more handles we have on who is actually doing it, because it's very simple. It can be cut down to very simple building blocks. Number one, whoever put the body chips in you, this is not a normal medical procedure, so it always goes back to Intel. Even when it was a hospital, it goes back to Intel. Intel infiltrated the hospital, and this is military technology. Now,
it could also be military intel. It could be the DIA or Army intelligence in the US doing it.
I absolutely agree. But at the end of the day, your domestic anti-terror intelligence, this is usually domestic intelligence. In Britain, it would be MI5. If you start with them, it is their duty to fight terrorism and protect the civilian population. That's whatever they do in real life. This is what it says on the can. So it is not even your duty to do the full forensics and find out who did it. Leave it to them. Just sue the head of Intel, because they ultimately, the buck stops with them. This is extreme terrorism. They are also in charge of the integrity of the signals intelligence, all right, and the entire SIGINT chain. It's their bloody duty to find this out, and it is their duty to investigate how the signals travel from your body chip to whichever server they are traveling to. When they're not doing it, they're doing it themselves. So it always goes back to the head of Intel, all right? And this is very, very simple. As victims and as Holocaust victims, for it is a Holocaust, you are not expected to do the full forensics yourself. And no court in the world can expect you to do the forensics yourself. All you have to do is prove You don't even have to prove in great detail, but you have to prove sketchily, I would say, that you have these body implants, that you had stalking, you had maybe break-ins, and you have been attacked with directed energy weapons, and then the case is pretty clear. And always your respondent in the first instance is the head of intel. End of story. If you have other respondents because you have seen them stalk you, okay, because it's also very common that you have high-profile people stalking you. We have that over and over in these cases. Then they will be also guilty, but nevertheless, the head of intel is guilty. So just to simplify for court cases.
Absolutely. And, I actually wanted to say, just as an add-on to what I said earlier about the article I just did with Omni, reporting his abuse currently, I'm actually working on a series of articles currently. And what I'm really doing is reporting the extreme abuse that people are reporting to me at this point in time. So I'm just doing it one after the other after the other. And this series I am calling the Classified Research Cover. And the question that I want these articles to address is classified research, is the label classified research being used to conceal crime? From everything I'm hearing, I think I can answer completely in the affirmative, but I am going to, I'm going to present people's stories and let readers decide for themselves. Because we know at this point in time that classified research is indeed being carried out. And this has been reported. I'll actually do maybe the second article, one of these articles, I'll actually put the information out there to show, to establish for everybody from the documentation that already exists that currently in 2018, the CIA and other agencies are indeed engaging in classified research using human subjects, and they refuse to divulge any information about this research openly, saying that it is well within their aegis as intelligence agencies to keep this information secret under cover of sources and methods of gathering intelligence, perhaps, which apparently I understand from the words of various CIA, ex-CIA and former CIA employees, that is kind of one of the coups. It's like plausible deniability. Plausible deniability and sources and methods of gathering intelligence are their two Masonic pillars that they hide behind. And what are they hiding? They are hiding crime. And so this series of articles, I project, is going to be a historic series of articles. And all it's going to do is report the experiences of people today who are experiencing neuro abuse. So if you want your story included in this series of articles, please just send me an email and tell me what's going on. And I will write a short article or do a short interview, just as I did with Omni. These are much faster and easier for me to do. I don't have to spend ages researching, etc. I just report what you are reporting. So feel free to contact me if you have something important to report. And if you think it falls within this umbrella that I'm just talking about, classified research, hidden crime, assault on your body, assault on your brain. Let's go for it. Let's publish your information. Let's publish your story.
And I also would like to encourage absolutely everybody to go to Ramona's channel. So this is Ramona D Reports on YouTube. I think it's very, very important. Let me just share my screen to show you all the stuff that has been coming out, because Ramona does incredibly important, incredibly important research and research work. And if you go to Ramona D Reports, you will have under videos absolutely fantastic series. So you also have the interviews with change makers, the need to know reports, and absolutely top whistleblowers here, many, many videos. And also know that she is running basically the victim interview part of the joint investigation team. So she is putting up the testimony of the victims. And I'm telling you that these testimonies can be used in front of court. So you can, as much as you can make references to written documentation, you can also make references to video documentation. Okay, so you're perfectly free to quote people's statements on in videos. Okay, so if you want to have your victim case backed up by another victim that's reporting the same thing on Ramona's interviews, you can always give the reference. Ideally, you download the video and burn it on CD and hand it into the court, and you give the minute mark, and then you quote it. In your document, you make the quote that you would like to quote, and the evidence that another victim said that will then be in the video. That is perfectly acceptable. Okay.
And I do ask people to go ahead and download any of my videos. You're free. I don't know if I've put the right license on there or whatever, but feel free to go to my channel, download my videos, upload it at your channel, and send it out. As we all know, YouTube is under attack. Rather, what am I saying? YouTube is attacking alt media. Alt media is under attack by YouTube currently. So who knows, how long my channel is going to stay up. But, and I'm trying to duplicate, I'm setting up identical channels in Vimeo and BitChute. I'm having huge issues with DTube and Steemit. If Steemit, anybody from Steemit is watching, I don't understand, but I've been trying very hard to get on Steemit lately because I'd love to publish both my videos and my articles on Steemit. But every time I put in an application, I keep being stopped, and I keep saying, oh, this cell phone number has already been tied to an application. You can't do a second application. But nothing's come through. It's been literally 3 or 4 weeks since my application, and I haven't heard, or I'm being sabotaged. So if you guys at Steemit and DTube are really interested in open source information, public education, and informing humanity of the crimes of the intelligence agencies, please approve my application and check out my work, because that's what I'm working on, and that's what Dr. Katherine Horton is working on as well. And so we need to be on Steemit if we want to if we want to connect with the journalistic world out there. If you guys are part of the cabal, however, and kind of covering it up, and then don't get me on there. And I think you will be publishing to the world that you are part of the cabal if you don't let me on there. So I guess we'll find out one way or the other. But I'd prefer to believe that you're legit and that you're for humanity for now. And if you are, please let me in.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, I'd have to write about it, just like I had to write about Wired.
We are getting onto Wired actually straight away. I've just got one more reference to stick in, because as a systems analyst and investigator, I would like to point people to the fact that what Omni was reporting in the article that Ramona published just now on everydayconcern.net, there is absolutely evidence abounds that what Omni is reporting is exactly what's going on with the cartel. Because in cartel signaling, so for those who don't know, cartel signaling is both, it's the covert signaling that members of the crime cartel do to each other to recognize each other, to pass on messages, but it's also the advertising that the cartel puts out there to its members, the insiders who are in on it, to actually announce the newest technology, to gloat about it, and to make it appear sexy. It's a cartel advert, okay? Now, cartel adverts typically appear in advertising, in Hollywood movies, and in music videos, okay? And there has been, I will start an entire series analyzing all this stuff and putting it up on my Patreon account. But I've analyzed, for example, the Jaguar adverts for you, and I pointed at the announcement of the genocide, the actual holocaust of that's now being unleashed. It was celebrated and announced in the Jaguar adverts. Now, the connection of Jaguar to Intel is that pretty much all government officials and all embassy staff seem to be driving Jaguars for some reason. So I rather suspect that Jaguar is a cartel company, okay? And when they put out adverts, they are advertising to the people who buy their Jaguars, as in also embassy staff, okay? So there we are, that's the connection. But there's also music videos where exactly this sort of BCI and also the virtual reality room that you can also access with your BCI is advertised. So BCI rooms have been advertised in James Bond movies. There's one where, oh God, what's the name of this actor who played I think the actor who appeared in Goldeneye. Anyway, there's a scene that you can find on YouTube on one of his James Bond movies where he actually trains in a virtual reality room. But there they make it appear as if the virtual reality room was actually something you put actually still glasses on and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm sure you can enter VR rooms with glasses, but the real thing, the real deal that's currently already live and that people like me and Omni and other people are involuntarily connected, actually, connected to, are VR rooms that use our brain chips. Okay, so I have already had incidences where I was sent entire freaking movies, okay, that are masquerading as dreams, but they're actually VR rooms that where I'm moving through the room like I would in a dream, but it's actually this chip or the chips in my head interacting with the freaking computer that actually has a VR. It's a total freak show, by the way. Okay. When you have dreams that are super high def and 3D and look like a fucking Hollywood movie, it is a Hollywood movie that's being broadcast. And it's absolutely
I think many of us have experienced those electronic dreams that are absolutely fake.
Yeah,
you know they're fake.
and there are
But
two
they're pumped through. Yeah.
exactly. There are two versions. A lot of victims get basically video streams sent to their eyes. Typically, it's horrific stuff about people getting injured, getting killed. It's about Nazi movies. So basically, Nazis are, in black and white, Leni Riefenstahl movie style, parading past. But people have also been made to watch actual live human sacrifice and the sacrifice of children. And the recorded image is then sent into their eye chips or whatever the technology is. So we have found people with lenses, thin film technology on their eyes, and they are forced to watch this stuff because it's, Big Brother style actually broadcast into your eye and into your brain. But then there's a second type, which is really the VR rooms, when you can decide if you're turning left or right, and the VR room actually, moves with you. And there's a little plot and a story, and you're interacting with them. If you ever experience stuff like that, don't freak out. Sue the bastards, okay? But I want all the victims to know that there's a technology behind it. So it's not demons. You haven't gone mad. It's just that a bunch of psychopathic intel agents got to you like they got to me when you were sleeping,
And just one little comment there, Katherine, because you mentioned these horrific images that are piped in that have to do with, sacrifice and whatnot. One of the startling things that Omni has reported is that it's pretty much the same kind of thing. He's basically saying that what he's experiencing is kind of neuro satanic ritual abuse. And he made the statement, and I kind of blew it up as a quote on my website on this article. He said it's increasingly clear that the international intelligence community and various military cybernetic networks are satanic ritual abuse perpetrators and sponsors. So I just think it's important to mention that.
Oh, absolutely. And it ties in beautifully with the cartel signaling I wanted to highlight to support Omni's case and everything that he says. And I invite everybody to wisen up about cartel signaling. I will be putting out courses on this to the best of my knowledge, to my current understanding, how to interpret cartel signaling. But just to give people a taster, I encourage everybody, if I may share my screen. This will seem silly to you if you have never met it before. Sorry, let me click here. But I ask you all to go and have a look at Taylor Swift's music video called Ready for It. And I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the actual profile image is the all-seeing eye, a rather somewhat evil-looking eye, but also on Taylor Swift. Unfortunately, I can't make it big, I don't think. But unfortunately, sorry, let me actually click on it and point. Sorry, we have to wait for the advert to just go by. I'm not actually advertising here for these things, but okay, here. So I want you to watch this video and note that it's exactly 3 minutes, 30 seconds. So 33, okay, as in 33 degrees of Freemasonry. It's kind of important. It also has 3 dots. So ... ready for it. That's also cartel signaling. But the actual starting image was this image here. And now I can blow it up so that you can have a look, because the all-seeing eye seems to have technology inside.
It does.
And what this is actually, this is exactly what the victims are reporting. And also it's very, very similar to what has in her eyes, because it has thin film. This is thin film technology, people. It's a transparent layer on your iris, okay, and on your pupil. And basically you can make, just like an LCD screen, you can make these little crystals change color and actually show you stuff, okay? So what you have right here in this Taylor Swift video is an actual demonstration of what an indication, a cartel signaling, an ad for this thin film technology that you can put into your eye and have it put into your eye, even against your will, typically, by the intel agencies. So this is pretty much what the people see. And once you have this on your eye, okay, the actual computer that steers this can send whatever you like to it. So if you suddenly go through through your life, and one day you wake up and you see people's heads replaced by devil's heads, and you look at somebody and suddenly their head changes to a demon or a devil's head or dragon or whatever, snake, or you see suddenly snakes that are not in your room crawl through your room, don't panic. Don't panic. Look for these eye implants, okay? And the way to look for them is you take a camera, you put it on selfie mode, and you take a little light. You can buy LED lights that are UV lights. They are typically called black lights. And when you then shine it on your eye, please not directly into your eye, but on your eye, your iris should have suddenly a turquoise or purple hue. All right. And that is basically this crystal structure that's super thin and that you can't feel, reflecting the light differently. Okay. So this is how you check for these eye implants. And then also please check to the left and to the right and above your eye or below for some yellowish, slightly different colored structure, and perhaps even a transparent layer that has its own blood vessels. But when you kind of push on it could be a skin on here, on the white of your eye. If you push on it and you suddenly see the blood vessels move, and they move relative to the blood vessels in the white of your eye, it means that you have a biofilm on it, okay? Again, don't freak out and don't panic, just check. And most of all, don't panic, because it's just shitty technology. It's a contact lens, okay? But one of the things I want to draw people's attention to is in this music video, you keep seeing these transparent cubes, okay? These transparent cubes and all sorts of crazy stuff, and sexy women start appearing, and typically on ponies and crazy stuff, okay? But go through this video, because all sorts of crazy stuff happens in this cube, and what it represents is the VR rooms, okay? This represents all the stuff that's possible in the VR rooms. And then if you listen to the lyrics, at some point she sings, you should see what we do in our dreams, and you should see what we do at night in our dreams, okay? And all this is exactly cartel signaling. So I could analyze more and go on and on and on. And at some point there's a scene where they're basically saying, here they are burning all the witches, all right? So all of this stuff, and also these lightning shots to the head, this is all right with the Jesus on the cross sort of symbol. What this is basically, to them, we're the witches. Ramona and I, we're the witches, because we're a bunch of stupid witches, as they might say, and we are getting these lightning strikes, as in directed energy weapon assaults, straight to our head, and we are being crucified, okay? And then there are all these scary images. So this is basically cartel signaling, confirming everything Ramona and Omni said. I just want you to know that there's evidence out there if you know how to read it.
Yes, absolutely. And as you know, Katherine, they do like to show this up in, music videos and films and stuff, all this predictive programming and, the box effect, cubes, that's where the future of humanity is. You're all going to be in a little cube. Those little cone hooded figures, those are, and the triangles on people's heads. That's just for the Illuminati. It's not for you and me. You and me have the lightning strikes. So yes, they do that. And it's rather sad to see Taylor Swift going the route of, those cartel minions as well.
Oh, absolutely. But I think, with all these, I also want to draw your attention to all the Hollywood stars who made the symbol of the all-seeing eye. Typically, they cover, a side of their face and so on. And that is cartel signaling. It's the all-seeing eye, and that's the recognition symbol of the mafia. So you can already deduce that every single Hollywood actor and artist who has made this signal, typically they have to go through a ritual, okay? And when they really want to get into the higher echelons and make a lot of money off the cartel, they have to, I think, also take part in human maiming and I'm not sure if it's full-blown human sacrifice, but something along those lines. So it's not funny, it's not cute. It's actually It is actually symbolizing of horrific crime.
Yeah, and the reason I think that it's actually relevant and germane to what we are speaking about, all of their signaling and all of the weird occult rituals that they engage in, etc., is because they are subjecting people under surveillance to literally satanic ritual abuse. Because people under surveillance are being hit 24/7 with weapons. This is not normal. This is not surveillance. Even if somebody was suspected of being a criminal and was suspected of, having some idea of blowing up a building or whatever, that person would need to be under surveillance. In other words, being watched or being listened to, not being hit with weaponry night and day, and not being neuro abused in the way that Omni is describing. So it should be, I think it's fairly clear to most of us, just sort of hearing about this, any one of us, just examining it even with a cursory eye, can very easily conclude that this is absolute crime. It's absolute criminality, what's going on. And so and it's very connected, as Omni has pointed out, to Satanism, occultism, and satanic ritual abuse. So we're talking about people inside the intelligence agencies, inside the military, who have clearly lost their marbles a long time ago and are simply running on empty currently while they slash about, killing and burning and sacrificing people and thinking that it's all good, it's all A-OK because it's all well hidden under surveillance and classified covers. So I think it's very important for the remaining, I don't know what fraction, maybe 1%, 2% of people in intelligence agencies who do still have their brains screwed on right. I think it's very important for that small minority to become aware of what's going on and begin to realize that they really should not be a party to it. If they have any real action going on up there, they need to start stepping out right now and start standing on the side of humanity, standing on our side, and beginning to rout out the incredible rot inside these agencies right now.
Oh, absolutely. And I completely agree. And these are really full-blown criminals. And I think we all wake up to the realization now that I believe, and I think the evidence is there to say that there have been many, many decades where criminals have actively been recruited to the intelligence agencies. So our colleague, Karen Melton Stewart, who unfortunately was sabotaged off the show today, even though she was here to start with, she reported about how the entry criteria for NSA were changed, and the applications of people with criminal convictions were actively invited. Now, the one thing that wasn't said previously on the show is I don't think that somebody with a massive criminal record would actually apply to NSA. All right. I mean, that seems a bit weird, right? So I think what actually happened is that there has been a program where people inside NSA, actual criminals, changed the entry conditions, but people, cartel members on the outside, already knew that this is coming and therefore submitted the applications in time. Okay? Because if NSA suddenly gets all these applications from people with prior convictions, to me that looks like a program, I mean, if you're an actual hardened criminal, the last place where you would want to apply is NSA, unless of course you know that once you make it into NSA you will be safe because you will be involved. So actually, I just want to, Ramona, are you ready to really rip this thing into?
Yes, we really should. We really should. I was just thinking about it. We should before we run out of time.
Absolutely.
So yes.
The highlight
to back up what you said about the NSA before we do that is that I think Karen had stated that it was NSA security that had relaxed the rules about whose resumes that they were going to push up the ladder. And they were the resumes of people with criminal records. So isn't that interesting? So that actually points to the rot inside the NSA. It points to the rot inside intelligence agencies. And it shows that, criminality, Satanism, occultism, death and destruction, lunatic, manic, terrorist tendencies are all being promoted by these intelligence agencies. inside them, inside their own environs. So that just goes to show that's what we're
Absolutely.
dealing with.
And also to back that up, one last thought to that. There has been a newspaper article in the mainstream British press about how the government was considering actively hiring psychopaths and people with prior convictions, and it was all presented as, oh, we need to give these people a second chance. Well, yeah, fine, but not in government office. But the entire point of them even considering has nothing to do with altruism. What it has to do is that there is already deep capture. The British government, like any other government, is already in deep capture by the crime cartel. All right, these people are already there, and they want cronies. Okay, they want more corrupt people to go along with their schemes, and they want to eliminate all the honest people. Okay, so this is why it's just so important that if you're in a government office, if you're anywhere, if you're in the judiciary, the police, or intel agencies, and you're listening to this and you still have your head screwed on despite all the MK Ultra and the threats and everything, it doesn't matter what the Official Secrets Act says. You have to actually act in such a way that we all survive this. We all survive this, and you have to fight this criminality. And this is absolutely urgent that you do so, you know. So you have to, if you're inside, you have to recapture the system. You have to be, of high integrity, and you have to fight them from within the system while we're fighting them from outside the system. Only that's how we're going to succeed.
And we're a handful because, as you know, even alt media is afraid to touch the subject. You don't get anybody else but us getting in front of a camera and openly speaking about the crimes of the intelligence agencies. I'm really surprised at alt media. I mean, I really, really am. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that the stories that are coming forward, when people like Omni step forward and speak out, I'm shocked that there are no journalists of spine and conscience and integrity out in old media except ourselves to report on these crimes. I'm really shocked. I don't know what's going on. I don't know when they're going to wake up. I don't know what it's going to take to make them snap out of it and start reporting on neurotech crime.
You know what I'm thinking, Ramona? I think one of the things we'll discover is that a lot of alt media people are also agents, because the intelligence agencies,
That's true.
They control both sides. So the intelligence agencies are doing this, so they know what's coming. They know where the dead dogs are buried, as we say in Hungarian.
Yeah.
So, they will put out an entire team already to go ahead. That will be the vanguard to catch all the people when they're coming forward. And maybe people have experienced this sort of thing where alt media is all too glad to get your data or your testimony to basically put you on the map. But when you need help, they let you drop, they drop you down.
That's true too. That's absolutely true. I think you're absolutely right. And yes, I'm perfectly aware that phenomenon actually exists as well, that there is a whole portion of alt media that's actually financed by the cabal and has been set in place by the cabal. And all of the shining lights and stars, of alt media over here, so-called crowdsourcing the truth, etc. I'm just using that as a phrase, by the way. That all of these people who are coming out of the woodwork and suddenly becoming shining lights, they're also on little pedestals. I'm not on a pedestal. I barely get any views on my videos. I don't know how many people visit my website. So that kind of should be a tip-off to anybody that the cabal is unfortunately not supporting me. Or perhaps I should say fortunately, because if I were being supported by them, then I could not be a voice for anybody else. So when you're on your own, like we are, and just sort of hanging off the edge of a cliff and to report the truth, we don't have the support of this vaster mechanism. We're literally lone voices, but we are pointing a bright light on the reality and truth of what is going on.
Absolutely. And the beauty with truth is, just like with mathematics, once you know the answer, it's so easy. And just here, once you know where to look, it's so easy. And once you know that GMOs are specifically put out to actually kill us and give us cancer, once you know that you're probably chipped and so is your daughter if she was born after 86 in the US, and once you know all these things, you will get to the answer so quickly. And once you know it, it doesn't matter how often they shoot into your head. You can't forget. You will know, once you know that the chemtrails are actually actively trying to spray disease and so on, and getting us sick and ensuring the full spectrum dominance of absolute criminals, you will never, ever be able to actually forget that, And once you actually know what books to look in for the information, by the way, the big one, the one on MI5, that's total fiction. Okay, so that's the one which is a book of fiction. The other ones are documentary.
Oh, I think we're not seeing that one. Maybe it's at the bottom of your.
Yeah, it's called The Defense of the Realm, The Authorized History of MI5 by Christopher Andrew. And if it's an authorized history of MI5, you already know.
Yeah. Well, as far as the intelligence agencies are concerned, fiction and nonfiction enjoy not just a line, but, a kind of an open field of mist. So they travel freely in the world of fiction, and they call it nonfiction. As, for instance, the writer at Wired did.
Oh, yes. The writer at Wired. So let's share my screen and let's take everybody there. This was the perfect segue in. So on my tweet 1752, I'm pointing to this because when you tweet it out, the first thing about the article that you see is the all-seeing eye, an eyeball with a target on, right? And it's called Mind Games, the Tortured Lives of Targeted Individuals. Now, this is a prime example of, I would say, Operation Mockingbird material. And look at the size of the all-seeing eye staring at you. And then they have these funky computer graphics where the eye, suddenly you see, oh, it's just a computer screen, And here, they are already cartel signaling you that this is a cartel piece. You're the target.
Mm-hmm.
The cartel has you as the target in their eye, and they're watching you by computer means, and it's going to be all to do with tech. So here the cartel signaling already sets the scene. And then Laura Yan, I think you should all note her down in your court cases. Laura Yan published this article here. And on what day was it published? I can't even decode this. Oh, the 3rd.
The 4th?
Yeah, exactly. The 4th of March, 2018. All right, at 7 a.m. So at 7 a.m., she got into work and published this thing for the cartel. And Laura Yan, I think her piece has to be mentioned in every single court case as an example of Operation Mockingbird, because Mind Games, the Tortured Lives of Targeted Individuals. Yes. And now the tagline, so the subtitle is, thousands of people think that the government is using implanted chips and electronic beams to control their minds. They are desperate to prove they aren't delusional. So look already, and this is Operation Mockingbird, and this is all about psychological warfare and information.
Yeah, it is psychological warfare, and this is about framing the narrative. So right away, she starts with framing the narrative. You see, so this story is not about anything but the delusional thinking of people imagining that the government has implanted them. So that line, those 2 lines that are right up there, if you were writing a story in fiction, the early establishment of exposition to create the window or frame through which the viewer or the reader sees is the frame. So she's creating the frame right there with that little, lead line or summary line for that article.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking, yes, I managed to actually increase the zoom so that people can actually, hopefully they can see it on the screen. It's basically this tagline, absolutely. And the skill is that, so in psychology, it's called priming. So priming means that you get a bit of information and you're being set into a frame of mind, or a thought is implanted in your head. And then everything that you will read henceforth or after that is under the aegis or with this in mind. That's priming, okay? Mm-hmm. So the priming that she managed to do is that they are desperate to prove that they aren't delusional. So already this entire thing is framed under the, are they delusional or not? Now,
mm-hmm. It also starts with a lie. This is the thing. It's a very cleverly done lie. Thousands of people think that the government is using implanted chips. Now, we know that that is a lie. The government is using implanted chips and electronic beams.
Exactly.
But I wouldn't use the word electronic. I would say electromagnetic, and neuroelectromagnetic might be more accurate. So, she's clearly very far from the truth. She's very far from science right here.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Exactly, because that's very well observed, actually, because I got stuck on the delusional. But you're right, because electronic beams don't exist in physics. You've got electromagnetic beams.
Right. And this is electromagnetic technology that's being used. So, and chips are indeed being used, but we know that the intelligence agencies are desperate to prove or to shout from the rooftops, really, that nobody's using chips, implants don't exist. People who are reporting implants are delusional. They desperately want to hide the fact that they are using implants.
Absolutely. I'm just going to sorry, you're absolutely right. And I'm just wanted to do a quick check if actually the people in the chat could read this. I'm not sure what it looks like on the screen.
I could read it, Catherine. So I'm sitting here in the US. I can read it. Yeah.
Okay. Then let's go straight back to this. Because one of the things I wanted to do is actually go through and analyze what the tricks were that were used here, because they're highly subtle. So it starts with every morning Liza wakes up and remembers that she's been tortured.
Right. People do not remember they've been tortured if they are still being tortured.
It's like, my day looks like this. I wake up either in agonizing pain or by massive shots into my body. So I wake up and I'm shot into my body and I'm being tortured. I don't just think, oh yeah, I know, I'm being tortured.
I know. And we are woken up. I mean, I think all of us had experienced sleep deprivation 3 or 5 times a night with heat laid to the back of my spine, and I absolutely need to get an infrared camera, etc., to prove I'm not delusional. But I'm woken up with heat on my spine.
And so then she says, when she looks down at her hands, she can see slightly raised bumps where she believes she's been implanted with microchips. She's certain that the chips track her every move, that her family has been programmed not to listen to her. She knows that her mind had been pushed to the limits of human endurance, the most pain you could put on a person before they die. The targeting, the rewiring of her brain is so extreme that she can no longer even cry. And that's actually, by the way, not being able to cry is also an artifact of MK Ultra and mind splitting. People become emotionless, and this emotional state also leaks into the other part. When you've got 2 split personalities or 2 split mental states, this kind of indolence can actually be rather far-reaching. So already when she says things like she can no longer cry, to me, who studied this, it already automatically signals MK Ultra, either not necessarily brain damage, but it could be brain damage, but most certainly trauma. This is a brain response to trauma. It's your brain's way of protecting you actually.
I also want to just point out that the way in which this article has been entered, the frame has been set, the point of view has been established. This is classic fiction writing. She's doing a good job writing a story.
Exactly. This is wonderful. It's getting better and better. So Lisa is 56, a thin, wiry woman with elf-like ears. Can you see how the sci-fi and the kind of Lord of the Rings?
Absolutely. Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's all the story. It's all just fiction. Elf-like ears and bright eyes. An artist who grew up in the Rocky Mountains. She worked at Microsoft for 10 years. Oh, wow, she worked for Microsoft? Well, look no further for the cartel.
Yeah, really. No surprise that she's being targeted, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, let's put Microsoft on the list. This is what I would say as an investigator. So she worked there for 10 years and started her own web development company with her partner before the electronic attacks. The stalking and the surveillance began. She knew it had to be some form of technology attacking her. She'd worked in the technology industry for more than a decade. She knew what it was capable of. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, once again, close focus on a character.
Yes.
And relaying the character's experiences.
Exactly, and not so much evidence and past, cases. When she sought help, a hospital committed her to a 10-day hold in the mental ward, teaching her how to calm her racing heart without addressing the technology that Lisa believed was causing it. When she was released, she found answers to her questions online. There was an encyclopedia of information, she says, a whole new vocabulary to help explain what she'd experienced. gang stalking, brain-computer interface, psychotronics. I felt really thankful, she says. I felt like I was opening up this crack into a whole new universe. Now, here in this paragraph, I would like to point out that I would like to see the mental ward that can teach you to calm your racing heart. You know,
Yeah, really.
what? I mean, again, it made it sound like, I mean, frankly, I think what happened is that these psychopathic, totally idiotic, weaponized morons in the mental ward, who are either gibbering morons and idiots or either criminals, held her for 10 days and she did everything to get out. And meanwhile, she was shot in her heart, like Frederick Laroche
It
reported.
was not her racing heart based on fear, anxiety, and paranoia, but it was simply a physical reaction to weaponry. And this is part of what's going on over here. The entire writing is the writing of the story, and it focuses on seeing this main character as delusional from the get-go, from the start. You see, so you're invited as a reader to consider that this person who is being focused on is just delusional from the beginning. She thinks this, she believes this, she does that. And these other good people outside in the mental health ward did this great work for her, teaching her to calm her racing heart, instead of calling a physicist or a radiologist or somebody with a meter to see if she was being hit with something.
Absolutely. And actually, this is very typical because one of the things I have observed, so I remember we have to ask Frederick Laroche again with what he was hit when he was put into forced psychiatry. But I also remember that many victims have reported to me that specifically when they're put into psychiatric wards, they are hit in the heart. And a lot of them have complained about racing hearts. And I think the idea is that, I mean, by the way, I'm pretty convinced by now that most psychiatric wards are fitted out, equipped for electromagnetic warfare. And in case you're wondering how that's done, you just put the weapons into the wall, okay? You put them behind.
And they could just be microwave emitters, that's all. They could be something very minor, but they're just directing pulses of microwaves. They're just hitting you constantly, inducing migraines or inducing heart attacks or whatever, These weapons at this point can be miniaturized, and they are being miniaturized.
They absolutely are. And also, so you can be hit in with a weapon that's inside the wall. And I think you reported, Ramona, that an Australian journalist received whistleblower reports from neurologists who said that in neurological surgeries, the brain chip readers are actually put into the wall. So
they're in the wall. Yes, this was Paul Baird, and his testimony is on his website, surveillanceissues.com. He talked to a whole bunch of neurologists, and two of them actually gave him information, gave him absolute disclosure. They said they keep the scanners behind. He's talking about head scanners, brain scanners. They keep them behind the wall. So if you go to visit a neurologist, your brain is being scanned and you don't even know it.
Yeah, and I think, the brain scanners, I think that what they're actually doing is the neurologists know that we have all been chipped over decades and that pretty much every patient that comes through their door is brain chipped. And all they have to do is put up a scanner and actually read out the brain chips. I think this is what's done. They're reading out the sensors and then they're giving you an awful lot of bullshit, a big blah, 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 blah. But I think if psychiatry is weaponized, neurology will be weaponized. And a lot of these neurologists will be intelligence agents or will have.
I think it is. And I think the entire hospitals could be weaponized. I have to say, as you were just saying, that Frederick Laroche and you both experienced inside hospital environments, the being hit. So did I. I experienced this at Quincy Hospital, at the Quincy Walk-in Center over here. And I also at Brigham and Women's Hospital downtown in Boston. So I'm sitting in the emergency room and I'm being hit. And they had actually wheeled my little bed or whatever into the hallway. So I was being observed clearly. I'm in the hallway being observed. And I'm being hit. And I really thought I was being hit from outside because we've all seen these big vans that are outfitted now with X-ray machines and with active denial systems, and also with microwave emitters, coursing up and down our streets and parked at various spots and so forth. And now, as you did, Catherine, you took us through how they hide these emitters in car doors as well. And on all of our streets, we now see cars being parked in specific spots. I noticed the pattern of parking on my street all the time. They do it all the time. So they use, they're using both GPS tracking and they're using emitters. So they can hit people from different angles. And I certainly experienced that sitting in the emergency room at Brigham Women's Hospital, or whatever it's called. So, they're hitting you inside the hospital.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the other thing is also, so I remind people, sorry, I have to change the screen. I remind people that when I was in with Melanie in Hospital Erasmus in Brussels, Hospital Erasmus in Brussels is already wired up for electromagnetic warfare, because I was hit not just in Melanie's patient room upstairs on the maternity ward, and there it was, I swear, it was the massive Cisco Systems Wi-Fi router. It was like this big, a router this big in a hospital room. Okay, that's a single room. This looked like, a router for an entire space station. You don't need routers that big, and especially not in hospital rooms. So we know that Wi-Fi is really damaging. Why was it in the hospital room? Because, and why did they allow Wi-Fi in the hospital room? It's not so that you can call your relatives, or, look at internet pages whilst you're recovering. No, this is about your body chips. And when I was in the room, as soon as we walked in, Melanie and I said, whoa, what is going on? And I just said, where is this thing? Where's the emitter hidden? So I checked behind the mirror, and at some point I look up, and there was the Death Star above us. So that was that, but also in the operating theater. Okay. So while Melanie was on the operating theater, operating table, I was standing next to her, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm being hit here. My head chips are being worked. Like I've got 5 computers connected to me. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Where the hell is this coming from? But this is in the basement of the hospital, so it had to be somewhere in the room. So this is how serious this is. So when you're hearing reports, especially in the UK, I think that was actually one of the interviews on the Richie Allen show that's now deleted off YouTube. I think somebody was reporting about organ trafficking and people being basically used for organ trafficking in hospitals. Don't be surprised, because these hospitals are being privatized. The cartel's already in there, but now they own it whole lot, So that's what's happening. So this is the reality, people. People are being literally dissected and taken for spare parts in hospitals. Your waiting rooms in urology surgeries are already wired up to read your body chips. We've got 5G, we've got the Internet of Things, and there's Laura Yan putting out the piece of crap, right? I mean, how?
Yeah. So she, that's such a clear hatchet job, everything that she did. And I guess we don't have time right now to go deep into it, and we'll do it another day. And, I definitely will be reporting on it as well when I do my media article, which I'm going to be putting out very soon. Because every time I look at something like this, it reminds me that what the cartel is really doing is they're trying very desperately to entrench their system of lies here. They want desperately to take targeted individuals and label them as delusional, and they want to reinforce the message over and over with article after article, in medium after medium, in newspaper after newspaper, magazine after magazine, and that's kind of what they're doing over here. So I think we need to sort of get cracking and show the world what these articles are really doing and how they're really employing basic psychology and basic principles of fiction writing to put across a big fat lie. And again, it comes down to, if you are fairly intelligent, if you have basic intelligence and you're reading this, and you're also keeping an eye on what's going on in the world and looking at the level of surveillance and looking at the level of secrecy, I think you can put 2 and 2 together and begin to understand what really is going on. Yes, weapons are being used. And, the people on whom the weapons are being used are going to be the best reporters, witnesses, and whistleblowers of the use of weaponry in populations. And that would be us, the targeted population. People who have, for some reason or the other, crossed paths with a criminal who is also an FBI informant, or his part of that matrix. And at this point, I think you can safely call it a satanic or satanist matrix, because we're talking about a Kabbalistic set of lunatics who are engaging in blood sacrifice, ritual abuse, the murder of innocents, the murder of children, the murder of babies. This is the coterie that's sitting inside intelligence agencies and targeting people of integrity, spine, and conscience, and throwing them under the bus in this dirty program, and then trafficking them into military experimentation projects using neurotechnology and cybernetics and artificial intelligence, etc., etc. So that's really where we are in the 21st century today. And if Laura Yan has not wised up and figured that out, if she's a genuine journalist who tried to do some research and just kind of fell all over herself and wrote a big bunch of lies completely obliviously without realizing that she was writing a bunch of lies, she needs to wake up and do some research, do some basic research to understand the incredible magnitude of sophistication of the neurotechnology that is out there today, the directed energy weapon technology that is out there today, the contracts that the military is running with various defense contractors right now. Weapons are being tested on humans, on populations. No mention of that. And as for the implant industry, my God, she looked at the website of one guy who's apparently a biohacker who went and implanted both his hands and thinks, he's the next thing since sliced bread or whatever, because, he's led the way and he's showing everybody how cool he is. And he can open doors now with his little bionic hand. If that's all she did, there's something very wrong with her research skills. Because a very cursory look at the RFID industry will show you that it's a growing multi-billion-dollar industry, and that implants are being used even in the medical world. In fact, most especially in the medical world, right? And they're being used by neurology. They're being used in brains. And how come she didn't do any research about brain-computer interfaces? I mean, there's a ton of information out there. Anybody can find this information, but no mention, no awareness whatsoever. She's far too happy to call the people that she met delusional and to paint them in that light. So, it's, I think we'd be hard-pressed really to believe that she's utterly innocent in this matter. We rather think that she's kind of delivering a little story for the cartel. But if she is really oblivious of the information out there, we're here to tell her there's a ton of information out there.
Well, I actually, I would like to point out two things. Number one is, by the way, I'm not sure if you mentioned it. I was just checking the comments, so please stop me if I repeat something we've already said. But I'm not sure if people are aware, but after reading this article, I got really angry. Ramona got really angry, and she put her, productive skills to work, and she wrote a really long, very informative comment, giving links to evidence, and that was removed by Wired. And we didn't notice. She just said, oh, by the way, did you see my comment, as we were ranting about how atrociously bad this criminal article is? And I looked at it and I said, your comment doesn't appear on my website. So she looked it up, and you found your comment on Discus, right?
Discus, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that keeps track of all the comments, and it was then, I think that was marked as spam or something.
It was detected as spam. So it makes me wonder, did Discus remove the comment or did Wired remove the comment? Because when I wrote the comment, it actually showed up on Wired, because normally when I send a comment, I just sort of wait to see if it registers. And I waited and it registered. It showed up there and I thought, okay, good, let people read that, and I left. And then, of course, we had our conversation later that night, and then I saw that the comment had been removed. So on Discus, when we looked up Discus, it was still there on Discus, but marked as detected as spam.
So I think it must have been because, as I understand it, so I haven't used Discus before, that keeps track of your comments that you post on websites, right?
It does. That's why I use it, because it keeps the record of every single comment that you make on any website.
But what's interesting is that Discus still had your comment, and that's how we recovered it, but Wired had it removed. So this was what it shows that Wired removed it.
Yeah, I kind of came to that conclusion immediately as well, because Wired is where I had left the comment. Do you know what I mean? So why would Discus, which is just a kind of a comment writing kind of service, remove it? So it sounded maybe this is it. Maybe Wired removed it and sent a note to Discus saying this is spam.
I think this is how it is, because any comment posted on the Wired website would be on the Wired servers, you know. So yes, and Wired is responsible for this.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that comment is that I mentioned that these are serious DoD CIA crimes that we are speaking about. And what's underway is a massive cover-up of Department of Defense, US Department of Defense, and CIA crimes. This is very important for people to know. The reason that targeted individuals are being constantly painted as delusional in all of these mainstream media articles, you know, these lying articles from the New York Times and the Daily Beast and now Wired, is that they are a cover-up. They are a massive cover-up for the military intelligence complex. What I forgot to mention was that the FBI is also involved. The Department of Justice is also involved in the cover-up. So, you know, that's for the next comment that may be removed again. So
actually, I want to point people to the fact that if you go to everydayconcern.net, you can find, so everydayconcern.net, and you can find on the front page, you have to just scroll down, you can find censorship, lies, deception. Wired removes writer's comment exposing DoD CIA crimes at Laura Jan's PopCon. So PopCon is an acronym, coined by Ramona, and I really like it. It's this PSYOP propaganda piece for the deep state. And we were talking about how we're actually being fed popcorn, as in popcorn. So this is the popcorn that you're eating while you're watching the deep state take over your life and your public institutions. But in there, you will find the link to the article and the screenshot of of Ramona's comment. Okay, so it's very important that you actually take this and print it off as a PDF and put it into your court cases, because this is evidence for censorship, right? This is discrimination and censorship, but it's also evidence for covering up crimes against humanity. Now, what I really suggest we do is that all as a homework to the reader, I really encourage you to take this article, read it. We're not going to chew through this now, and paragraph by paragraph, analyze what psychological tricks have been used to actually paint these people as delusional, because it's very, very subtle. Some of it are more simple and easy to spot, but others are extremely hard to spot. And I really invite you to actually do this exercise, because my entire philosophy. Oh, there, we just lost Ramona. Damn. Oh, there's Ramona. She's coming back. My entire philosophy is that we need to use system judo. So if they do bullshit, we grab them and we end up wiser. We have to basically learn how they do it, go through all the articles that they've written before, recognize this using this exercise, and take everything that they've done, having recognized it as actual psychological warfare, and take them to court. So you need to wisen up, you need to do the work, you need to put it into your court case, and we all need to be able to spot this, because this has basically led to the death of millions. This sort of, these sort of techniques.
Yes, absolutely. The mainstream media, as we were talking about the other day, mainstream media is literally becoming a crime scene. These are the scenes of crimes. It is a crime, I contend, and I think you were just getting through saying the same thing, that these kinds of articles painting the reporting victims of intelligence agency and military crime as delusional and as mentally ill. Yeah. These are crimes in themselves. I don't know if you noticed, but as soon as I mentioned the FBI and DOJ the last time, I was bumped off.
Yes, this is just confirmation, ladies and gentlemen. Remember the FBI and the DOJ in your court cases. Please do mention them. It's very important,
Yes, and absolutely. And I would suggest that everybody go storm the bastions over at Wired and tell them exactly what you think, of that article.
Oh, please do. That's very important. And also, just like I showed you, I sent a formal notice to YouTube. Feel free to send a formal notice to Wired, because I will do so. I hope tonight I've got a bit of time to actually do that. Absolutely. And you should really threaten court action. If you're a Holocaust victim, you've got a very good right, because this was not just biased reporting. They actively removed a comment by one of the experts in the field. So this is extremely damaging. And also, there was the New York Times article, The United States of Paranoia, which is a criminal piece. It's a criminal cover-up and actual libel of Holocaust victims. This is a very serious offense, and Mike McFate still has it coming. So, you know, crimes against humanity do not have a limitation period. So this means it's going to stay fresh whenever. So there's no time limit on when you can send the letter and actually sue the New York Times for this. But it has been hugely damaging. But basically, because of the Wired article and because of the New York Times article, because of the German platform Netzpolitik.org or .de, I can't remember, but Netzpolitik refusing to report about this and laughing at me on the phone, because of the Guardian journalist Luke Harding refusing to report about this and actually doing gaslighting on during the phone call, right, laughing in my face, asking what nationality I am, which was actually a British intelligence harassment term that they did in Oxford to me a lot of the time. I was laughed at by Luke Harding from the Guardian. Private Eye, I was in their offices literally, you know, on the 16th of June 2016. They didn't quite throw me out, but they urged me to leave before the writers from upstairs came down from their writers' meeting. They sent my folder back. They refused to call me off, find out information, and they refused to report crimes against humanity. Because of all this, and because of the Daily Telegraph celebrating the death of two police women as the great sacrifice, the Daily Mail using a Freemasonic signaling and actually celebrating the same death, right? And basically it was a big Masonic piece. Because of all these things, I am now calling for a blanket boycott of all of mainstream media. And to tell you how serious I am, I'm also revealing that I was contacted by the History Channel in the US. They want to do a documentary about mind control that's going to come out. I was asked to appear on it. I gave it extremely serious thought, but because of the Wired article and because I've lost trust in all of mainstream media, I have withdrawn from it. So this was a very serious decision because people do need mainstream media exposure, and mind control specifically, and neurotech does need exposure. I would like to say that the person I talked to, the producer, I did believe that he was going forward with the best of intentions. However, I am calling for a total blanket boycott of all of mainstream media. Henceforth, I haven't done so in a long time, but henceforth I shall not buy a single newspaper. I didn't have a television for the last, I think, 8 or 10 years, and even before then. But I'm not going to watch anything on mainstream TV. I'm not going to endeavor to talk to them. And as soon as they come near me, I'm just going to go, stay away from me, vampires. And I'm not going to engage with them at all. And I ask you all to do the same thing. I used to have a subscription to Private Eye. It's run out, and I'm not going to renew it ever. I'm not going to buy a newspaper, and I'm not going to turn on the TV, not even by mistake. Okay? And I think this is the way to really make these people obsolete. The only thing I'm going to watch is Ramona reports. I'm going to read Everyday Concern, and I'm going to read all the other blogs. And I'm going to watch the videos that people put out there, because I want to get my news from the horse's mouth from now on. And bit by bit, I want to build up a trusted network of people, and I want to support them directly. So basically, by the way, I wasn't allowed to vote because I'm not a Swiss citizen, but the Swiss had an actual referendum for against the license fee. Here for public media. I have to check what the outcome was, but I'm also against things like the license fee, against the license fee in the UK, against the the equivalent in Germany and elsewhere, because they have been paying a cartel, and that has been covering up crimes against humanity. So that is my stance, and for this, I'm not going to appear on any mainstream media, interviews. I also know that. For example, the NSA whistleblower William Binney complained about the fact that he can't get on to mainstream media. He appeared on Alex Jones and on alternative platforms, and I encourage everybody to just listen to the interviews. I was really impressed by the interviews that Kirk Wiebe gave, Bill Binney, Catherine Austin Fitz I can recommend, Kevin Shipp I can recommend, and Ray McGowan, who I've just discovered. I don't know why I haven't heard about him 2 years ago. That's my fault. But he is amazing. Really, I love the interviews that I saw by this guy, and I'm extremely impressed. And he is a former CIA analyst, and he actually stands up and speaks and says how it is. And really, I'm very impressed, and I'm grateful for these people to come forward. And I want every single whistleblower who puts themselves out there and maybe gets assassination attempts, like, hey, like we do,
all the time,
all the
non-stop,
time.
continuous basis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to belittle it because it's serious every single time it happens, but know that we respect that a lot, and there are still people out there to whom it means an awful lot. And
I think we can safely say that we live in a state of siege, Catherine. We are constantly being hit, and we're constantly being the threat of assassination, the threat of being killed is continuous, because I'm literally being hit in a very intense way pretty much every day. So we are working under these extreme conditions, and we ask the entire world to be aware of that. This is why we are not holding back. We are speaking our minds, because we are being literally attacked to death.
absolutely, absolutely. And I also want to say, this is absolutely right. And there's so much that happens to Dr. Millicent Black right now. She's trying to recover. I ask you all to please start writing letters for her. But also know that Karen Melton Stewart was sabotaged off the show today, and I'm really angry about that. She is being assaulted nonstop, continuously by NSA and NSA security thugs and their minion network. But also, so is Melanie Richan as well. She's being assaulted nonstop as she's fighting for her daughter against the criminals in Hospital Erasmus. And also, Ramona is being assaulted in ways she doesn't even, describe. And I want you all to know that when we come onto the show every week, we pay a huge price. Our families are being attacked. Our families are also being mutilated. But we come here, and we will continue coming here. And in fact, we'll step up the fight every single week. And now this episode, remember, is the opening of our war, right? So we have opened war. I've opened war on YouTube. I've opened war on Wired, on the mainstream media, right? And I'm going to open war every single week on more and more people. And I ask you to join us. But because it's International Women's Day, and because today is the 8th of March, and last month, exactly on the 8th of February, was the death anniversary of Dr. Ronnie Kilder, I would like to declare war on the head of Norwegian intelligence, who is responsible for her murder. And I would like to inform the world who that is. I investigated a bit, and as far as I can make out, the person responsible for Norwegian intelligence in the year that Dr. Ronnie Kilder died, which was, I think, 2015, was a certain Kjell Grandhagen. And this is Mr. Kjell Grandhagen, okay? I want to, as the rap song says, remember the name. And remember the face, please, because Kjell Grandhagen here, oh yes, look at the wonky crosses and the 6 satanic stars on his, here on his, his jacket. Yes, Grandhagen. So he was the head of Norwegian intelligence, a military man. And when you see military men, think, oh, good, they can be court-martialed and shot in most cases. So I think this is precisely what should happen in this case, because Dr. Ronnie Kilder was mutilated and terrorized for 10 years as she lived in Norway as a Finnish lady. She was the former chief medical officer of Finland, and she was shot with directed energy weapons. She was terrorized by her neighbors in a tiny, tiny village in Norway in exactly the same way. On film, there's a record of this post arriving on Sunday, black Mercedes driving past in a threatening manner in her tiny village in Norway. And this man was responsible for protecting Dr. Ronnie Kilder. Instead, he sent his men to terrorize her, to assault her, and she was attacked brutally with directed energy weapons in her home in Norway. She was taken to the wrong hospital. She was assaulted in hospital in Norway, and she had to flee to Finland, where in the end she died from her injuries that were inflicted on her in Norway under the orders, we must assume, of, I'm not sure it's a general or what's it, but it's certainly Kjell Grandhagen who is responsible. So I am now publicly declaring war on this man personally, because he personally, as far as I can make out, was responsible for the death of Dr. Ronnie Kilder. And this is a death against a wonderful woman that cannot be forgiven until her murderers are found. And the full, with murderers, I mean the full chain leading all the way up to Kjell Grandhagen, because there was the assassins There was the people who were terrorizing her, the people who actually triggered the directed energy weapons and made sure she died, the ambulance driver who took her to the wrong hospital, the doctor who punched her in the kidney so hard that she was passing blood the next day. The entire series of people who conspired to murder Dr. Ronnie Kilder, but ultimately the person responsible was the person who authorized this, and that was Kjell Grandhagen. So today, on International Women's Day, I am now charging Kjell Grandhagen with the premeditated torture and murder of Dr. Ronnie Kilder. If it was somebody else who was in charge, please point it out to me. According to the information I could find, he was the head of domestic Norwegian intelligence, and with that, he is guilty. Because
I should simply reiterate something that you already drew attention to earlier, Katherine, is that when we point to people and we show their photographs and we say that somebody was responsible, we are simply pointing to people in the public domain. These are public figures. They are heads of intelligence agencies. They know what's going on. They are running the show. People like General Michael Hayden, for instance, who comes out and denies that he knows anything about directed energy weapons when he was the head of the NSA and the CIA, etc. So these men are very much in the know. They're very much involved. They have been tasked with high office, that they have misused and abused by unleashing these programs on the civilian populace. So when we point out and name names and show photographs, we are merely pointing out that these people need to be court-martialed or tried in court. We are not in any way advocating violence of any kind toward anybody. And I just wanted to reiterate that. Because, and this is the point that I also want to make, these men have declared war on us. They've declared war on the civilian populace. These intelligence agencies have wrongfully and criminally declared war on the civilian populace. We have not actually declared war on them. What they are running is asymmetric warfare. It is one-sided warfare. They have weaponry. They are using weaponry on us. And as I said at the start of the show, we are using our words, our minds, our thoughts. And hopefully the court system, as you pointed out, Katherine, let's hope the court system in some way, works for us. But this is what we are using. We are using our words, our thoughts, our minds to point to the criminality. Absolutely. They are using weapons on us. That is one-sided. That is actually not even war. That's tyranny. That's repression, oppression, dictatorship, communism, tyranny. That's total takeover. That's enslavement. And so we are speaking out against that. So we don't have surveillance in the world today. We have enslavement, and it's called one-sided assault with weaponry.
You have put it beautifully, Ramona. Absolutely every single word. You are absolutely right. And it's also what I would like to point out is, as you, by the way, correctly said, when I said he can be killed, I mean after a court-martial, after an orderly court-martial, under civilized circumstances, he can receive the death penalty and be killed. Hopefully, and we have to check Norway's law, but hopefully he can be killed, because I think he should be, for the restoration of sanity into our population, because I think there are even graver crimes coming from this man. I think we'll uncover that, and I'll explain the reasons why I say that. But you're absolutely right. We are talking about orderly court-martials, and not court-martials where it's manned by a lynch mob or some perps. No. It's about what we mean. It's going back to justice. But the death penalty, when you're dealing with psychopaths, has its space in the world. That's what I would advocate, because psychopaths only respond to death, sadly. And they have to, only when they see other people, other psychopaths being killed, do they rein themselves in. Otherwise, they do not do that. So I don't think that the death penalty has just grown out of utter savagery of our past centuries. No, I think there are such grave crimes powered by such depravity that only the death penalty can heal the world and rid them of this, utter insanity. So we should end soon, but I would like to say just two more things. I also would like to, because it's International Women's Day, and we know that 70 to 80% of the women of the victims are women. I also want to say that if you're suffering, if you're being raped and mutilated, know that the perpetrators will not be forgiven. there is no love and forgiveness for utter psychopaths who continue committing a known crime over and over, because these are premeditated crimes. Okay, so I want you all to write your blacklist, have ready who has done this to you, and know that we will prosecute them until we get the full chain. Okay, and I would like to start with Dr. Ronnie.
Absolutely. Somebody left a message on one of my videos saying forgiveness is in your best interest.
No.
Sounded like a threat to me.
Oh,
And what I'd like to say about that, is love and forgiveness leads me to fully expose you and your criminality, because it's important that the world know. It's important that the entire world wake up and see what's going on. It's important for humanity. None of us can step forward without this criminality being fully exposed and fully addressed.
Absolutely. And I think with that, I would like to open this season for absolutely everybody. We'll be stepping up our efforts every single week. Sadly, this week we have to wrap up, but there's lots more to tell you about. So there's already plenty for next week. So from my side, I will leave Ramona with the final words. I just would like to say, please do investigate these people like Kjell Grandhagen, because he has murdered a woman, I think, or authorized her murder. It could not have been done without his authorization. These men do that. And he's also a war criminal, because what he did is against the Geneva Conventions. He has systematically let a woman be targeted, and he either refused help, but I rather think he actively authorized this. Now, I would also say that I do not assume that any military personnel by themselves does such an atrocious crime over so many years. So I rather think that Kjell Grandhagen has a control file with which he was blackmailed into doing that, given that he doesn't have a personal gripe against Dr. Ronnie Kilder, and given that she wasn't really dangerous. So I rather assume he did that because he's a member of the cartel, which by induction means he's got a control file, which based on what we know also means he probably sacrificed some children. Okay, that's just what the deductive chain says. I'm sorry to say, that's where it leads. So I ask everybody in Norway to really get on the case of Kjell Grandhagen, look if there's any missing children or mistreated children in somewhere in his CV, because I rather suspect there are. So please, this is the opening of the war. This is the truth, people. And with that, I sign up, and I wish all the women on International Women's Day. I don't wish you a good day, because I know you don't necessarily have one. I wish you, I don't know, a lot of courage and a lot of anger for the year ahead. How about that? Bye, sisters.
And Katherine, on International Women's Day, I just wanted to add that, you and I and Sherry Ganeri and Dr. Millicent Black got together and did a podcast reporting the sexual abuse and rape that this weaponry is able to unleash on women. And we reported our own experiences. Now, I think what we were reporting is the kind of information that the Nuremberg 2.0 War Crimes Tribunal should be hearing. So I'm hoping actually to write an article on that video and include it in my current series as classified research being used to conceal crime. Because the crime of sexual abuse of women and of men is not to be taken lightly. So on International Women's Day, I'm here to tell all the women of the world that if you are a victim of radio frequency rape or microwave rape, we have you covered. We are going to be speaking openly about this. I will publish that article shortly. And also, I never did get to doing a podcast with men, a kind of parallel podcast reporting the sexual abuse of men, because I know the same thing is going on. With these microwave weapons, they're able to hit the genitals of men and women both pretty easily. They're able to torture men and women both. And we know the Satanists running these programs take pleasure in torturing men as well. So I will hope to do a podcast with at least 3 or 4 men to report to the world that this is going on. Sexual abuse with neurotechnology and with directed energy weapon technology is going on. Who this indicts is the U.S. military in the U.S. And other countries' militaries and the intelligence agencies. It indicts these militaries and intelligence agencies because I don't know if they're aware, but humans do have rights. And one of the rights that humans have is to be free of assault of their bodies and brains, free of torture, to live peaceful lives in privacy, minus torture. And these weapons are inflicting torture on humans. So, on that note, let's make International Women's Day meaningful for both women and men. And we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for watching. And, stay strong. Keep shielding if you're being hit by this rogue surveillance state. And be very sure, be very confident that we are making great strides forward. We are exposing this criminality. And very soon, this house of cards built by these Satanists is going to come tumbling down. So thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.